Metten, bonjour, guten Nachmittag, good afternoon. For us lucky folks present here physically, isn't it great to be back together? And to those viewing us via live stream, thank you so much for joining from all corners of the globe. Welcome to the second edition of Digital Supply Chain Europe, an international event dedicated to presenting the biggest challenges of the supply chain and logistics sector, an essential key to the functioning of the worldwide economy, as continued to be demonstrated by the COVID-19 pandemic. And what better place to come together for this hybrid event? A blend of safe physical presence via the COVID check protocol, combined with live stream, than the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg, a multinational and cutting-edge powerhouse of a country in the heart of Europe. I'm Carla Rosen-Vacher, Outreach Communication Officer for the Luxembourg Center for Logistics and Supply Chain Management, also known as the LCL, at the Faculty of Law, Economics, and Finance of the University of Luxembourg. We would like to thank Farvest Group for expanding this segment within the annual ICT Spring event this year, as well as our main sponsor, the Luxembourg Ministry of the Economy, with the Director of Supply Chain 4.0, within the Directorate of Industry, New Technologies, and Research, Daniel Lieberman. And of course, the European Convention Center, Luxembourg, for welcoming us in this spectacular setting. We are so pleased to share the stage with innovative companies that are improving the value chain and optimizing digital and data management every day. During this afternoon, I will have the pleasure of welcoming on stage and remotely high-end experts of the logistics and supply chain sectors who will discuss three important topics. Number one, achieving greater sustainability through supply chain collaboration. Number two, succeeding in the digital transformation journey of supply chains. And number three, affronting the e-commerce surge. And now, please welcome our friend and master partner in supply chains, Daniel Lieberman of the Luxembourg Ministry of the Economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla, for the kind words and the introduction. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor for me to be given the opportunity to open the second edition of the Digital Supply Chain Europe Summit, which is focusing on the digitalization of supply chains and their related logistics activities. I'm also very pleased to see so many faces here in the room, beside the numerous people participating online from all over the world. As we are heading towards the end of the year peak season and demand is picking up again, manufacturers are now facing difficulties to source key products and materials to keep their production running properly again. Going back to a certain normal will need to be orchestrated carefully. Building resilient, sustainable, and future-proof supply chains is the way forward. To address such need, collaboration among all stakeholders involved in global supply chain is one of the major challenges. Therefore, it is important to provide all parties with an open dialogue platform for changing ideas and addressing challenges related to the reshaping of supply chains and the related logistic networks. The Digital Supply Chain Europe Summit is therefore a great opportunity to share experience, discover new solutions, and to network with potential future partners. Before going any further, let me thank the Faast team for having organized again this year this event flawlessly under the special circumstances that we are still living. Ladies and gentlemen, after more than a year and a half of disruption caused by the pandemic, supply chain and their logistic network are still facing major challenges around the world. And if the ongoing pandemic wasn't enough, the blockage of the Suez Canal or the flooding in China and Europe are just some of the more recent events putting additional pressure on the global supply chains and the economic recovery. Disruptions are more frequent, and they seem to become a common variable to deal with. This should prompt all stakeholders involved in global supply chain to rethink supply chain management. Important changes were already ongoing before the crisis. COVID-19 hasn't only accelerated the pace of digital transformation, but has also enhanced the need for greater trust and transparency throughout global supply chains. Continuing and reinforcing our digitalization efforts will help in that respect. Effective procurement and supply chain risk management require from manufacturers, suppliers, and their related logistics service providers to create adequate collaborative platforms where they can share data and communicate effectively to create a more resilient and sustainable supply chains. Adopting digital technologies will enable to reshape supply chains architecture from a linear one where information is only shared between immediate stakeholders into a more interconnected one where information flows seamlessly across all stakeholders. Ladies and gentlemen, closure of brick-and-mortar stores induced more consumers stuck at home to shop online, thus generating a boom in e-commerce sales. This trend is here to stay, pushing retailers that were not fully engaged in e-commerce to further pursue their online offering. Offering flexible deliveries and return solutions are generating increased challenges to logistics service providers, especially in urban areas. However, logistics service providers alone will not drive the success or failure of achieving more sustainable last-mile delivery solutions. Understanding the logistics and supply chain needs of e-commerce is also a crucial factor of city planning. However, urban freight informations are rarely shared, making it difficult to develop long-term strategies. In order to improve efficiency of last-mile delivery, data from numerous economic stakeholders needs to be collected and shared. Is it clear that urban logistics will also require a collaborative approach in order to find the right balance between customers' expectation, environmental impact, and economic performance? Finally, renewed and growing expectation for sustainability will also require a more collaborative approach besides using greener means of transportation. Data sharing, enhanced by digital technologies, will notably enable route planning optimization or maximize asset utilizations. Today, we need to look forward and plan together the sustainable growth of the supply chain and logistics sector. Over the past decades, Luxembourg invested continuously in the modernization of its logistics and supply chain hub. Lately, on the request of various leaders in global procurement established in Luxembourg, the government has supported the creation of an academic chair in digital procurement that will further reinforce Luxembourg's skills and expertise to successfully manage companies' supply chain in the digital era. In addition, companies established in Luxembourg can also benefit from tailor-made financing schemes to state-of-the-art ICT infrastructure and skilled IT people for embracing the digital transformation of their supply chain management. They can also easily find R&D collaboration partners. The country's size, agility, and determination to be on the cutting edge of new technologies advances makes it a perfect living lab for testing innovative solutions in a real environment. Thank you very much for listening. I wish you a fruitful exchange during this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel, for such Thank you, Daniel, for such a great introduction. Thank you. Now to open the topic, achieving greater sustainability through supply chain collaboration, I am pleased to welcome on stage my colleague, Nils Löhndorf. Nils is chair holder in digital procurement and associate professor at the Luxembourg Center for Logistics and Supply Chain Management, the LCL, at the University of Luxembourg. Nils' research interests are in operations research, in particular optimization under uncertainty, with current applications in operational management and valuation of energy storage systems. Nils has published his research in leading journals, such as Operations Research, European Journal of Operational Research, and IIE Transactions. Today with us, he will discuss corporate renewable energy sourcing. Nils, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Carla, and I'm delighted to be here. Now I'm accompanying my presentation here with a set of slides that I would like to get started with. There they are, okay. Great, so I will be talking about corporate renewable power sourcing and some of the challenges and opportunities that come with that, and I would like to zoom in onto two particular topics that are of current practical interest. Now, we all know that we need to reduce the CO2 emissions, in particular of our energy consumptions. And here we see the renewable power generation in Germany, which has in 2020 already reached 31%. Most of this growth in renewable power generation was spurred by the promise of fixed feed-in tariffs, mostly in the 2000s, of the EEG law in Germany, which spurred investments into home installations of PV panels and kicked off a whole industry that is now able to produce solar panels at scale at very low prices. Now, in the past couple of years, the big companies embarked on this train and pledged to produce 100% renewables. This was mostly driven by the automotive industry, who started to produce electric vehicles, and if you produce electric vehicles, you're more credible if you also produce these electric vehicles with renewable power. And companies such as Volkswagen or VW or Mercedes or General Motors make this pledge for their own companies, but also for on behalf of their supply chain. So if you want to remain a supplier for any of those companies, you need to purchase renewable power and also become 100% renewable. Now, how do companies do this? Most companies do not invest into their own projects, although some of them do. Most of them sign what is called a renewable power purchase agreement. Now, these are effectively agreements between a supplier. This is often a developer of a renewable project who understands well how to develop such a project and how to finance it, and the buyer on the other side. And what they agree on is a price and a quantity. Now, this quantity is often a certain percentage of the production of that project, which can be assessed in advance, usually by running several scenarios of how much this renewable generator or this renewable project will produce in the next 10 to 15 or even 20 years, as well as a price. So these buyers guarantee the supplier a fixed price, and this on the other side makes it easier for the supplier to find financing for this project because they have already secured their cash flows. And on the other side, for the buyer, it is a good thing for reducing their CO2 emission and improving their ecological footprint. Now, I don't want to discuss how these renewable power purchase agreements work, but there are a few challenges that come with setting up and agreeing on a fair price. Now, let's say, what is the capture price of a PV project in 2025? You have to imagine signing a PPA is usually committing for a fixed price for 10 to 15 to 20 years in advance. This means you need some ability to assess the price of this renewable power project in the future and what its value would be against the market price. And now the market price has changed, and the more renewable power we see on the grid, the more this price will also change in the future. As an example, we see here the spot price for electricity for a typical day in July over the years since 2008 until 2020. And we can clearly see that the increase in solar power installations has decreased and put pressure on the price. So if you're trying to make money with solar power generation, you're selling your power effectively at a time, and you receive most of the power at a time when the prices are lowest. And this needs to be taken into account when pricing a renewable power purchase agreement. And what makes the whole problem quite difficult. So you need some sort of long-term model that tells you how to price such a project, and we are currently in a research project where we are trying to develop such a model ourselves to help pricing those PPAs. Now the other challenge comes from hedging. All of a sudden, power buyers are becoming producers through the commitment they have on the PPA, and again, these PPA have a project horizon of 10 to 20 years, but there is simply no hedging instruments to hedge the cash flows and the exposure that they have to the market price. Now here we see an example of the time to maturity for different power futures that are traded at the European Energy Exchange. And we can see that up to a couple of years in advance, the liquidity in those markets is quite good. But if we look further ahead into 10 years in advance, then the liquidity in those markets is quite poor. And this also presents a problem for hedging, and there is basically no solution at the horizon currently to help companies or buyers of renewable PPAs to properly hedge those obligations. Now, when there are challenges, there are also opportunities. Let me zoom in a little bit on how the electricity market works to give you a context where these opportunities may lie. Now, today, electrical power is purchased at competitive markets. In our transmission zone here, this is usually the apex spot market. But there are also other markets like the futures market, which I've just introduced, and the balancing market. But the most important markets are the so-called spot markets, which are the day-ahead market and the intraday market, or the continuous intraday market. Now, power is sold or purchased one day in advance in the day-ahead market. And whenever there is an offset or an imbalance, you can still, shortly until delivery, trade this power on the intraday market. And this is often used by solar power producers, which have inaccurate forecasts one day in advance. And once the forecasts are improved and updated, they can trade these imbalances on the continuous intraday market. And as you can imagine, this also creates an opportunity if you are flexible. So for example, here we see two different shapes of variability for renewable power generation. We see a very short-term variability, an hourly variability of a solar power generation on the left, and on the right we see like a long-term variability. And the business opportunity arises in the short term. So whenever a PV forecast or wind forecast needs to be corrected and you're sufficiently flexible in your purchasing decision, then you can exploit this short-term variability. Now in operations management, we have different ways on how variability can be buffered. One of those buffers is storage or inventory. So you can buffer it by investing into energy storage. There are a lot of electric vehicles being put on the road, so this may in the future become a buffer of that variability. Then there are thermal plants like short-term peakers, such as gas plants, as a source of variability. But for buyers of electricity, they can also offer their flexibility in terms of demand response, and in particular the IT industry and their data centers have already started doing that. Now, here we see what is actually in for those providing the variability. In red, you see the day-ahead price for a 2019 summer week and for a 2019 winter week, and the hour-ahead continuous intraday price. So if you had changed your mind in terms of how much electricity you would be able to provide, you can gain a lot of, you can make a lot of profit in providing flexibility to offset these prices. So you have a day-ahead commitment, you're flexible, you can sell, and you can buy back at the intraday market. And most people value this variability still with looking at the day-ahead market. Now, if you evaluate variability, if you evaluate flexibility only looking at the day-ahead market, you get what you see here in the red line. I did this calculation together with a PhD student who's also in the audience, Ruzbe Korbanian, who did most of the implementation here. So if you look at the calculation for the day-ahead market, then you see that you come at an estimate, let's say, for one megawatt of 10,000 euro of profit. But if you, again, also look at how often you can readjust your schedule and your buying behavior in the intraday market, your profit increases almost by a factor of 4. And this is still a pessimistic estimate because we used a very greedy algorithm that only took a very opportunistic stance in the intraday market. And if you take a look at this from this perspective, then offering short-term flexibility back to the market as an energy buyer provides a substantial opportunity to make additional money and also support the larger electricity system with countering the variability that is inherent in renewable power. Now, if we look at where industrial consumers currently stand, I say that there's an exception maybe with data centers and IT companies who are much faster in implementing digital solutions into their operations. Then we see that system automation in terms of energy management is still not there. So it's not that easy to ramp production up and down or ramp a steel mill up and down. But it is much easier to distribute the server load maybe in a data center. On the other side, you have trading automation, so you need automated access to those markets. Usually the trade signals come in milliseconds, so you need some automated way of exploiting these market opportunities. This is not a trader sitting on. Today, this is often a trader, but in the future, if you really want to couple these two things together, you need on the one side automated production or automated consumption. On the other side, you need automated trading. And currently, the only players that are really in that area, that really good in that area, are so-called virtual power plants. These are aggregators or portfolios of consumers and producers, often renewable biomass plants, and they manage the data flow from these units. They can control these different units, and they can also sell their power and their power generation on the various markets. So for industrial consumers, there is still a road ahead, but I think that there is a huge business opportunity, especially when you look at the exploitation of the price differences in short-term markets. Okay, so to conclude my talk, there are two takeaway messages here. Regarding corporate renewable power sourcing, there is still a large challenge lying in the valuation for renewable PPAs, in particular because it is very difficult to properly calculate the capture price for all the different scenarios and setups of the future power system. And the second one, where there are challenges, there are sometimes also opportunities, is an opportunity that further automation opens new business opportunities also for energy procurement. That concludes my talk. Thank you very much. I think we have a few minutes for questions. Yes, please.
I wonder, for the pricing, does it depend a lot on what will be the dominant storage technology, whether that will be hydrogen or batteries or something I'm not thinking of right now? Because whatever becomes the dominant storage technology, the storage technology takes power off the grid when there is a surplus, right?
Yes, this is one scenario we can technically feed into a fundamental price model. This is why I also think that fundamental models are needed, where you can input a scenario about what that you believe the future might look like, as a possible mix of different technologies in the power system, and then run a simulation to calculate the captured prices. But this involves solving quite a difficult problem, but nonetheless, you could run different scenarios. You could say, okay, what happens if we have a lot of PV? What happens if we have hydrogen, which comes with a lot of losses? What happens if we have additional capacity coming, for example, from Norway, where the price volatility looks quite different because of the excess of storage capacity that they have in their fjords. There was another question, I think. Okay, thank you very much again.
Thank you very much, Nils, for presenting your leading research and project to the audience. All right, let's continue with our next speaker, Bas de Vos. As Vice President IFS-Labs for IFS, Bas has responsibility to position and communicate IFS's innovation projects to illustrate the future of business applications. Bas is a passionate advocate of pragmatic innovation, driving business value rather than innovating for the sake of innovation. Today on stage, Bas will present Developing Enterprise Software for the Future based on Sri Lanka's innovation, capability, and ingenuity. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Bas. You can now join me on stage, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. And I have to start out with what a pleasure it is to be on a stage again. I think it has been almost 2 years ago that I had the opportunity to actually address a physical audience, so pardon me if I sound a little bit rusty. I've got the opportunity today to talk about our collaboration with the country of Sri Lanka. We have a history of more than 20 years with a presence in the country, and I would like to talk a little bit about that. But before I go there, allow me a quick introduction into IFS as a company. For those of you that don't know IFS yet, right? IFS is a global software company. We're providing enterprise resource planning, enterprise asset management, and field service management solutions all over the globe. We have more than 4,000 employees, of which more than 1,700 are actually located in Sri Lanka. We serve more than 10,000 enterprise customers, generating a revenue of over $1 billion. We do this while we're outgrowing the market significantly and serving some of the world's largest customers like Maersk, Pepsi, BMW, KLM Air France. We do this providing a unique single solution for enterprise resource planning, enterprise asset management, and field service management. We continuously strive to make it easier to use, easier to deploy, cheaper to own, without compromising on functionality or quality. And this is widely recognized by the analyst community, for example, by Gartner, who recently announced their field service management magical quadrant, where we are named the leader for the 6th consecutive year. The uniqueness to our approach is that we serve a fixed set of industries with a single solution. These are industries like aviation or energy and utilities or manufacturing. These are all asset and service-centric industries. We focus only on these industries because that's where we're specialists in. That's where our history is, and that's where our core is. You won't find us in banking or in insurance. We focus really on asset and service-centric industries. And this customer focus has basically led us to announce what we call the moments of service customer concept. Service is becoming more and more important in each and every industry, whether it's aviation, whether it's manufacturing, or proper service management industries. Customers and consumers are expecting more and better service from their suppliers than ever before. They expect guaranteed outcomes. And only those companies that are able to perfect what we call a moment of service to their customers will be the winners and will be the most successful businesses. But what is a moment of service? A quick example. We all have seen lines outside of stores in the past 2 years. The corona pandemic has led us to implement social distancing, number of people in a store, etc. And it's actually quite easy to abuse the corona pandemic as an excuse for bad service. Instead, a telco company decided to make use of this opportunity to actually deliver a sort of a wow moment to the customers, an even better experience. They implemented a system that allowed their customers, when they would walk up to the store, receive a notification on their phone, directing them to a sign-in form, to a check-in form. And after filling out the form, the app would basically tell them how long they may have to wait outside of the store. And that basically allowed their customers that instead of standing in the line to buy a pair of jeans in another store, or sit outside and drink a cup of coffee. And it's basically this attitude of saying, no, we don't accept bad service, but rather we would like to use this opportunity to create an even better service than we did before the pandemic. That's really what creates this wow moment, this moment of service. But it's not easy. It requires your customers, their expectations. It requires your people and their culture, and it requires your assets and technology. For me personally, these are the best and the greatest opportunities to innovate. We have to continuously innovate to provide our customers with the means to deliver these moments of services to their customers. One of the tools we have at IFS, of course not the only one, but personally I think the best one, is the IFS-Labs team that I've got the honor to lead. And before we go in a little bit more detail what we actually do on a day-by-day basis, allow me to share some words around innovation. Because what is innovation? Innovation is more than having a great new idea. Innovation only works if you actually take that idea out of your head and make it reality, put it into the real world, put it into product. And even that's not enough. You actually also have to deliver value, not just to yourself, but to someone else, your customers, your users, your consumers. And what we see in today's world, there's basically 3, what I would call challenges or hurdles around innovation that need to be addressed to solve this puzzle. The first is fear. And fear is when you have a process that works, a system that delivers value, a product that is actually selling to your customers, and then suddenly something happens, the environment changes. It could be the rise of a startup that suddenly has a completely different business model than you and is going to beat you, or it could be something as a global pandemic. But it comes down to the fact that what used to work suddenly doesn't work anymore. And if you don't have any new ideas, if you don't have any innovation in your company, you don't have the drive to actually change that, you're left with fear. So you need to generate ideas. The second is fantasy. And fantasy is when you have a lot of great new ideas, but you don't know how to make them reality yet. We have to get the ideas out of our heads and in product. I said that before. And sometimes that's not easy. That requires hard work, risk-taking, and in many, many cases it requires failure as well. And the third driver is frustration. And this is when you have this great new technology and this great new idea, and it's solving a technical problem, but you don't have a business model yet. You don't know how to express the value of it to your customers. You're unable to deliver value with it because your customers don't want to buy your products. How are you solving that? And that's one way of looking at innovation, and the other way is putting it in time. And I like to use the McKinsey's model of 3 horizons of innovation for that. And basically that is when when you put innovation in time, right? If you look at the furthest out horizon, disruptive innovation, those are the technologies that are at least 5 to 10 years out. They might disrupt the way we work. They might disrupt our day-to-day life. But the key characteristics is that we need to learn what works here. Closer to home, Horizon 2, that's 2 to 5 years out. This is where you start implementing your product vision. What do we want to achieve? Where do we want to add value? And this is really about technology that might be unknown to yourself, but there's other companies out there that actually understand it and are able to deliver something with it. So this is about developing the business model that works for you. And the third horizon is Horizon 1, that's incremental innovation. You have a product that works, that delivers value, that is sold to the customer, that's generating revenue, but you're incrementally improving it. My team, the IFS-Labs team, is responsible for IFS to take that concept of innovation, new ideas, putting them in product, generating value, challenging the three sort of problems you see with that through time and drive innovation into IFS and solve these problems. Basically, you could say we have a responsibility towards delivering value, delivering innovation at the right moment, in the right way, with applicability for our target industries and value for the customers. Basically, you could say at IFS-Labs, we're responsible for the future of IFS software. And we largely do that based on the innovation that comes out of our Sri Lanka-based operations. My team, IFS-Labs, is for about 80% based out of Sri Lanka and 20% scattered over the globe. And this is actually fairly representative for our entire R&D department. A nice example of an innovation that recently came out of the IFS-Labs team is IFS Remote Assistance. So I would like to talk a little bit about that. So what is remote assistance? Actually, we all know FaceTime. It's like FaceTime on steroids. You're able to establish a video call between two parties. Could be a field service engineer out in the field and the support desk in the back office. Could be between the support desk and a customer. And basically, within that video call, you can annotate. You can show PDFs. You can share even the video feed, so you can do something that's called merged reality, so you can point your finger actually in the physical or in the virtual world of the other person, as you can see in the video in the lower right corner. And this concept started out in IFS-Labs in 2018 as a fantasy, right? As an idea. Ooh, wouldn't this be cool? Are our customers going to buy it? Do they already need it? Is there a need for it? And back in 2018, yeah, we felt it was a cool idea, but we were really looking on how we could actually sell this to our customers. What's the business model behind it? But we pressed on, we worked on that, and then something happened. We all know, early 2020, the corona pandemic broke out, and suddenly our customers needed to have this. They were left with fear, right? Because they needed to have this in order to still go with a field service engineer into a customer site with lockdowns and social distancing and other type of rules into place. They couldn't send two persons. They were not allowed to put two people on the same van. So with this remote assistance, they were able to actually solve a large part of that problem for them. So we rolled that out as a standalone product in 2020, embedded in 2021, and now we're sort of in the Horizon 1 phase where we incrementally continue to upgrade that. As you can see in the upper right corner, we're currently working on extending this capability on head-mounted devices, so you can basically, well, keep your hands free as a field service technician and actually work whilst you have that video feed in front of you. As said, I have got the opportunity to speak here today because we have been collaborating with Sri Lanka since 1997. And IFS first invested in Sri Lanka for three main reasons, three characteristics of Sri Lanka that still very much apply today. And the first one, it has a fantastic, I have to say, education system. It's very IT-oriented, and we get a new batch of quality staff from the universities every so many months. But it's not just that they're well educated, they also have a great culture. We see some of the lowest attrition rates of the entire South Asia region. And in addition, the people come with the same customer focus and the same technology culture that we have as a company in IFS as well. And the third reason is that it has the in-country technology and infrastructure to actually support us as a company as well. And those three reasons combined led us to invest in Sri Lanka more than 20 years ago, and ever since. And that has not changed. Today, as I said, right, the far majority of our R&D and our support and our remote consulting organizations are all based in Sri Lanka. Through time, this is only becoming more important to us. Our software business is growing over 26% a year, which basically means we have to scale our R&D departments, rapidly. And IFS or Sri Lanka basically has been capable of delivering us the top quality talent that we need as a company. And at the same time, or even more important, they live and breathe the same core customer-focused values that made IFS very successful over the years and allowed us to deliver our moments of service to our customers. Thank you.
Thank you, Bas, for presenting your insightful overview of Sri Lanka's innovation. To continue, we will now connect with Andrea Faast. Andrea is head of Infrastructure City Planning Department at the Vienna Chamber of Commerce in Austria. And thanks to a remote intervention, she will present the Sustainable Logistics 2030 Lower Austria Vienna project. Andrea, the mic and video are yours.
So, hello, everybody. I didn't come to you, so I hope it's okay to send you this video, this message from Austria, from Vienna. I'll give you now the presentation about the Sustainable Logistics 2030 plus in Lower Vienna, Austria, as we called our project. We have 4 project partners. It's very important that the community of Vienna and the Lower Austria, which is the land surrounding Vienna, are partners in this project, and the 2 chambers of commerce also carrying this project. We started in 2016 with this project, and we had a stakeholder process with over 200 people from all interest groups, administration, politics, businessmen, and scientists. I hope you heard me also at the beginning, and I told you that we had this big stakeholder process with 200 people, and we had 2 phases in this project. From 2017 to 2019, we worked out the basics, and we did some processing to come to an action plan. And now we are in this implementation phase of, from this action plan that's running till 2024. On this second slide, you can see that we are in a really dynamic area concerning the traffic in our region. It's a massive increase of traffic in this Vienna and surrounding area. We call that Center of Europe, and it's a lot to do here. And road rate is also increasing very much. But a lot of conflicts with that. Please change to the third slide. Here you see some pictures from all the plans public institutions did for this area, but there's nothing that handles with city logistic and freight transport. Please check in your region if you have that. It's really necessary. In Vienna, they are looking very much on the residents, and there are a lot of plans and smart city strategies and all these things, but nothing for city logistic and freight transport. So please change to the next, to slide 4. The goals of our project. We had 4 really important goals, and we want to solve these conflicts for moving and stationary traffic. And we want to have this reduction of carbon emissions in Lower Austria and Vienna. And the third aim was our biggest thing. Nobody thought that we can reach it, that we can have traffic reduction with no trade-off in performance or in quality. That was the point that's most discussed and most controversial at the beginning. Then we have to improve and to make some consensual logistic and transport concepts. I told you there were no concepts and nothing when we started. And one of the most important points, and I will show you then some of them, are the pilot projects. We started a lot of them, and you will see afterwards what I mean with that. So at the next slide, you see the timetable for this first phase from 17, 18, and 19. We were very busy. At the end of the year 19, we had this action plan. You can see it afterwards. First did a survey with these people in the surrounding concerned with freight traffic. And yeah, we are not pulling together at the start of this project. Everybody has a different look on the problems, and the people who did not agree that traffic reduction would be enabled to, and they didn't think that we can also perform then. Also, the people are really accepting that and expecting that freight traffic will increase also in the future. So that's where we started. And on the next slide, you see how do the problems relate to which project goals and solution findings we had. And it was primarily the traffic congestion, the parking problems, and the loading zones in Vienna, because they find no places where they can park and put out their freight. That's what we had and the first. And also the next slide, please. We see that the future improvements are concerning more or less 5 really important things. We had to adopt new technologies to get the vehicles and the traffic carbon free. We have the problem of the last mile concerning also the traffic and the loading zones. We have the ideas of these cooperation hubs, and also the land using and the areas for logistic companies are very long discussed in our project. And we have to plan a space for these companies. That were the 5 most important topics. And for the action plan, and we go further on the next slide, please. We had these 8 clusters, topics in these clusters. And sorry for that, this German, but it's the logistic areas, it's sustainable logistic concepts, it's digital information and services, it's consolidation of goods. Also very hard discussed. Companies don't like solutions like that. The framework setting is also one of the important points. The solutions for parcel logistics, then faster procedures of fleet changing to carbon-free vehicles, and the communication about the performance and the costs of logistics, because it's for everybody of us, we like to buy online and the internet, and we are not thinking about everything that happens after we made this click. Now, when in 2020, we started to come in process with this action plan. On the next slide, in slide number 10, you see it. It's on the left side, you see the action plan. You can also download it later on if you want to read about all these actions. There are 133 of them, and 71% are in processing now, and we started to work on these actions. So what do I mean in detail? So we made a study for these logistic areas in the region. We made another study for the courier, express, and parcel services in Vienna. We start thinking of adoption of the driving bans on weekends for the logistics and all this. So slide number 11 also gives you an idea where we are, and 2024, it's a long time, and we are hoping that we reach our goals there. Now at slide number 12, we have a nice overview of the pilot projects. These pilot projects are very important because in this project you can bring people in our project. They do something. Some of these projects are run by companies, and we are just the umbrella project. Logistics 2030 is now in Vienna an umbrella project for all projects done with logistics. Everybody who is trying something, we get thousands of letter of intents to come with the people and help them with their projects. And here you can see what's running now. So we have a project for reduction the construction related traffic. Then we have a freight traffic model for the eastern region. We also have a hub project in these two of them. Hubert is also a hub project. We have a project that's Green to Home called. It started just a few weeks ago. Then we have e-mobility thing for the companies, and several others. I have also a lot to do with hubs and with parcel box solutions. And we have a project with taxes, with carbon-free taxes. So what is very important for us, you can see on the next slide, that these pilot projects support our goals from the action plan. And as you can see, they are doing that more or less. Not everybody has 10, but there are about 5 to 6 actions always meant with this pilot projects. But what I also want to share with you is there are some of them are also completed, and I want to highlight that not everything was successful what we did here. So we learned successful in the meaning of it could be spread out, or it could be started to a permanent implementation. We learned a lot what's working and what's not working, and maybe somewhere else, but not in Vienna, these projects would work. But we found out that for our region, these are not so good. So the main topics here is also this consolidation of codes and the cooperative hubs. These things are really hard work and not so easy done. So what I want to show you now is 3 of these projects we do at the moment. The first one on the next slide is Green to Home. They started, it's a platform that focuses on package delivery. It's carbon-free delivery. They collect the parcels and bring it to your home on. If you can also order them on one day, so they can collect them, and then they go just one time to your home and bring that. It's not only for households, it's also for companies. So if you have an online shop, they come and pick your parcels, also bring parcels back on the other way. So but it's not only their duty to do that. It's a platform, and everybody who has a carbon-free vehicle can come to this platform and be part of this Green to Home project. So they just started, but they have now 300 customers, and we are hopefully that they get a lot more, and we are very interested how it will go on with this. We will try to show also how many carbon we spared, but it's too early now. I can't tell you about these figures now. Our next project is on the next slide. It's, you see, the name is here German and English. It's Wien out of the box. It's really the project name. It's a parcel solution project, but it's like the project before, it's an umbrella project. It's a platform. We now have 8 operators for parcel solutions in Vienna, 8 different, with these open solutions. What I mean with open, we have also the Austrian Post and Amazon. They have also their parcel lockers, but nobody else can use them. So we prefer very much these other solutions where everybody can come to this platform and use these parcel boxes. So we had the idea to make this umbrella project that you have at the end one app, and for the customer it should be very easy to find the next parcel box and have one system to use that. So everybody of these 8 is under this project now, and they start the integration on this app. You can also find that on our homepage, and if you're interested, and have a look on that. Yeah, and the next one I'm proudly present, I would say, because it's my project this year, and we started yesterday. It's an online guide for e-mobility. It's to guide the companies, the Viennese companies, through the process of changing their vehicles to carbon-free vehicles. It's an advisory program where you can get information of all points you need in this process. We did a survey first, and we found out that the most important things in the city is the loading situation. If you have a solution for that, then you are fine. And so we focused very much on these loading things. We also get a solution with more than 80 garages. They have now a special tariff for parking and loading for companies. And we also have solutions in public space. That's a very hard discussion in Vienna. They don't want to have fixed loading places for companies or for special vehicles in the public area. And but we found some interesting solutions here. And so we hope that many companies can use this electronic guide. And at the end, you can also send your requirements for energy and all these from this guide to the companies who make that. Yeah, that's also one of these things. So now coming back to the project, yeah, we won some awards in the meanwhile for our logistic project, and we do a lot of work with webinars. Also, of course, of the situation now, but it works very good. We get a lot of people on air in this sense, and we did also a lot of press communication. You see in the next slide. We have a lot of communication here, and at the end, yeah, we have this homepage you can see here, and we try to bring we are in connection with the 200 people of our first project and get feedback from these stakeholders, and so we go on, and I hope we have lot of other good ideas for all our actions we try to get done to bring up the city logistics in Vienna. So that's my part. And
so thank you to Andrea for sharing this very important project with us today. To open the second topic of this afternoon, entitled Succeeding in the Digital Transformation Journey of Supply Chains, let's welcome our next speaker. In 2015, Arnaud Lambert was chosen to be the next CEO of CHAMP. As CEO, Arnaud led 500 colleagues located in 7 offices worldwide over 5 continents, and built the company to be the leading provider of SaaS software, so software as a service, solutions for the air cargo industry. In January 2021, Arnaud joined the team of Luxinnovation, the Luxembourg National Innovation Agency, as director of the Digital Innovation Hub, with the purpose of accelerating the digital transformation of the industry. For a presentation focusing on the emergence of digital platforms in Supply Chain 4.0, please welcome on stage Arnaud Lambert.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm very pleased to be here together with you, not only in a digital form, but also in the physical form for a change. I think for everybody it has been an interesting time, and it's unfortunately still be. Today, I'm going to talk about the emergence of marketplaces into the supply chain 4.0. And before I do that, I just would like to introduce what is the Digital Innovation Hub. So I have the pleasure to head the Digital Innovation Hub, which is actually a hub facing demand and responding to the demand of the industry in their digital transformation and making the hubbing, the linking with the suppliers, the academic world, research organisms, but also potential financing possibilities, be it at the national or at the European level. So a very rich ecosystem. We do that several forms. We first want to inform our partners and our industry with the relevant technological evolution and opportunities. But we also want to inspire them with the right business cases that would be applicable to them for their business transformation. And also whenever possible, we try to help them from a financing point of view, be it at the national or at the European level. We actually working, as I said, at national and European level, we hopefully be part, as from next year, of the European Digital Innovation Hub ecosystem being put forward in Europe. We are hosted at Luxinnovation, so a part of Luxinnovation, the National Innovation Agency, but we also a partnership of different partners, Fédération des Industries de Luxembourg, Chamber of Commerce, FNR, University of Luxembourg, Compétences.lu, and more technological focusing progress about also where we have Lux Provide, and not to forget Security Made in Luxembourg. So a whole ecosystem of partnership. But now let's dive into the topic of the presentation. So the starting point in supply chain 4.0, it starts with the industry. Industry 4.0. Now you probably have seen such a slide in different forms, but there has been a lot of evolution. We are in a very interesting time because we have left the age of 4.0, because 4.0, according to that slide, was actually several years ago, so 6 years ago, and we're heading to a digital ecosystem. So what do we mean here? Today, Industry 4.0, it's about digital, connected, and smart. But it's only the foreground of a virtual ecosystem where actually everything is interlinked. And the key point here in supply chain is exactly that. It's a chain that is actually interlinked for the delivery of the goods and the services. So traditionally, we start by the industry. The industry is at the core of the supply chain and many other actors, logistics suppliers, etc. But in the industry, if we look at how the industry in general is looking at digital transformation, it is actually the orange box that you see on this slide, which means that it is their internal production line processes. That's where most of the industry so far have addressed digital transformation. For traceability of the goods, for optimization of the performance, for interoperability of the different, I would say, production lines, many reasons. And also in terms of some support functions that we can see at the lower ends. But very rare, and in the one I've met still today, very rare, they have really fully embraced the customer relationship, or the other side, the supplier's relationship. And where in the supply chain, you are connected between the customer and the supplier. And actually, the biggest value creation comes from the digital transformation from the customer management and its intimacy and the supplier management. And of course, cross processes into the industry. Now, it's not me saying that. We need to shift the focus from internal to external. A study from IBM that did several years ago, though, showed that up to 65% of the value of a company is actually linked to its supplier, is dependent on its supplier. And I think the recent months have clearly shown, as introduced by Daniel Lieberman earlier on, that disruption have created disruption in value creation at the industry level. Not only that, but also Next Move has made an interesting study in terms of analyzing more details about what you can have from cost reduction, what you can have from efficiency, etc., etc. But above all, the key point is that it's about the fact that you can actually increase your service levels, use customer intimacy. And it is key in supply chain because all the members of the supply chain are actually working for one single customer, the end customer. Of course, one is the customer and the supplier of the other, but basically, this is the key point. Now, and we are also working in a highly connected world. Technology is there, yes, but now expectations are really about being connected. 24/7, I do my business at any time. Now, where does that come from? Well, it comes from various aspects, but first of all, let's have a look at connections, because in a normal way, in the traditional way, connections was about point to point. Me, as an industry, I have a connection with my customers, and I have direct connection with my customers, or I have connection with my suppliers. That's okay, and that's still applicable today. However, in this industry 4.0, moving into the digital ecosystem, that's not enough. You have so many connections that actually now you need to move into a marketplace. Because simply, it's not feasible to manage only point-to-point connections. Which means that these days, marketplaces are really a key area to be addressed by industries into the supply chain. Now, what do we speak about? Well, clearly certain people have chosen marketplace. The consumers have chosen the marketplace. Just see, I mean, it's not complete set, but you see different sets, be it on the travel side, be it on consumer side, and still you see, of course, that those things do come into the B2B market and the supply chain. Now, how does it do that? Well, the key driver is that the B2C, the business to consumer, he's leading the path to the B2B relationship and set the bar. Now, how do we see that? Well, let's go back pre-COVID. Let's go back in 2019 and see what 60 seconds on internet look like. Well, you can go about all of that. You can see video streaming. You can be relationship management. That's basically the nice word about Tinder. And you have many other things that you can see, but it's all about connectivity. It's about exchanging of information. Now, that has, and all of us in this room, and all of you behind your screens or your smartphone, etc., this applies to you, this applies to us. This is so engraved in our digital experience, that is what is being now transposed into the B2B world. Which means today, your customer in the B2B world is also a customer in the B2C world, and his experience in a digital interaction is coming from the B2C. It's about personalization, it's about transparency, it's about exchange of information, it's about proactive notification, it's about being visible, being digital, being visual. And that's why I'm not the only one saying it. quoting always some important sources, just so that at least I put credibility in my speech, but this is what is key. Now, how does that translate now into the world? Well, you know the Amazon, well, probably if you haven't used it, but Amazon for business is as big as Amazon for consumers. And if you take his neighboring cousin from Asia, Alibaba is well known also in the consumer market, but is as strong into the B2B market. Now, Europe has launched also a program as part of Horizon 2020 called Marketplace to encourage basically marketplace into supply management. And if we go closer to Luxembourg, sorry, I need to put my Luxembourgish flag today still, Shipsta is an example of a company that's actually putting a marketplace of freight management and logistics, trying to improve offer and demand. But how does the world look like? That's basically a picture of the European market, and of course you can't put everything. But what do we know and what do we notice? You see different sectors, and it means that overall the European market has highly embraced, finally, the marketplaces in different segments. And if we look about the investments actually have been really done, the key ones, really in the last 3 years. I removed the COVID time for the moment, but the last basically 3 years. So you go from 2017, 18, 19, huge amount of investments, the majority of investment in marketplaces took place there. Ask any fund, any VC, this is basically where they put their money, clearly in those times. So it is actually a key place of investment, not only, and that's the key point, not only on the B2C, but really on the B2B. And logistics today is about multi-channel. It's about making things fluid, and therefore, those marketplaces are there, and they will be growing even further. What has been the COVID-19 impact? Well, the COVID-19 impact, according to Gartner, I put certain key focus. And one focus is clearly on people centricity, and that is clearly a reflection how you can see all what you see on the B2C, but again also applying on the B2B. Why? Because you couldn't reach the people physically, so in the end you had to do it digitally. You have clearly the element of location independence. I mean, this time of challenging time of hampering mobility across the world has clearly shown that you need to be able to do things from different locations. It's not about BCP only, it's about really doing sourcing from multiple sources. It's about really evolving your logistic chain and supply chain into multiple locations. And of course, there is a resilience aspect. I mean, we have been through a tremendous change in the last few months. And let's be clear, there will be more like that, whether of that nature or of a different one. But I don't think we should just think that this has been just one-off event. The whole supply chain, the shock was so big that clearly an element of resilience is key. Key for the whole supply chain, key for all its members, and key for the economies of the world. All these have therefore fueled further the need of marketplaces. First, the usage of the existing ones, but clearly the creation of new ones, because suddenly the point-to-point, again, relationship was not enough. What would I say in summary? A few things. The first thing is that we have seen that supply chain 4.0 is only the beginning of a different era. It's the premises of a digital ecosystem in which not only it's about smart, digital, and connected, but it's about virtualized. It's about collaboration. So collaboration will be key. When we speak about collaboration, it means exchange, data exchange. Big topic. A lot of initiatives also on the European side are taking place there and in the rest of the world. Traceability, etc. Virtualized. It looks like one single process, even if you have multiple companies involved in it. The second element, clearly, we have seen is the business to consumer has really set the pace and has set the bar for the B2B interaction. And therefore, in the supply chain management, this is actually accelerating, and that's why we can see now that the marketplaces are now playing a more and more central role in the B2B interactions. That doesn't prevent to have still the one-to-one. It's complementary. It's complementary, it's the multi-channel element. And then last but not least, the COVID-19, clearly, those months we have seen and we have lived together, has clearly put even more focus on the relevance of those marketplaces in the supply chain. This is what I wanted to share with you today on the emergence of on marketplaces in the supply chain. Thank you. Any questions? Or do we go straight back to the Master of Ceremony? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arnaud, for sharing your insights today, and great to see you after so long. All right, two experts of logistics will now take the stage to discuss how to create a data value chain for the supply chain. Martin Szugat is founder and managing director of Datentreiber, a data strategy consultancy supporting companies to digitally transform to a data-driven business. He invented the data strategy design method and provides a free data strategy design kit. He will be joined by Andreas Kleine, Global Head of CRM, Customer Relationship Management, Sales Applications for Kuehne and Nagel. At Kuehne and Nagel, Andreas implemented and rolled out a global CRM system, among other things, for which he is still responsible today. Furthermore, he implemented a data warehouse, reflecting the group-wide data, which today is the basis for implementing data strategies from the customer's point of view, with the vision to be able to propose the next best action at any time in the future to ensure optimal customer satisfaction. As we connect with Andreas, Martin, please join me on stage.
Hello, and yeah, thanks for having us, having me. That's great to be back on stage after, I think, 12 months was my last real-world conference. So after many virtual conferences, it's great to be back. Andreas, hi, how are you?
Great to hear you. I can't see you, I cannot see anything, but at least I can hear your voice, which is already great. I'm really sorry I couldn't make it. Still, we are in a kind of, call it my travel ban, so I have to join now virtually here.
Yeah, we all know the issues, but it's great to see you virtually, and hopefully in a few weeks or months we will meet again in person.
Definitely.
So yes, the topic will be how to create a data value chain for the supply chain. I mean, why are we talking about this topic? So my job at Datentreiber as a managing director is to consult our clients how to create value from the data and to identify the data assets. And a few years ago, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, I was asked by Andreas Kleine whether we could help them to design and execute a data strategy for Kuehne and Nagel. And we started with, I think, 1 or 2 data strategy workshops. So we applied our method and our tools. By the way, if you look at the back of Andreas' office, there you can see one of our tools. So thanks for promoting them. Yeah, by the way,
still in use.
Great. And so, Andreas, so it's now, I think 3 years ago, we had our first workshop.
Yep.
And you had quite a journey, a data journey within SAM. Could you tell us a little bit more about what happened, how you started, and how you proceed over the last few years, and what you achieved since then?
Yeah. Maybe I can even start quickly a little bit before we come together and had our together workshops, because the whole topic about artificial intelligence, data strategy, big data, machine learning, and so on and so was a topic where a couple of years I looked a little bit into it. And then you realize, based on the setup you have, maybe you are not as far that you really can start with this, because you need trust to data below, or data that is in a certain exception, sorry, not exception, is accepted within the organization. So we started based on our CRM implementation then to build up a complete new data warehouse, connecting all the different, call it my main core systems there, to build up a trusted data warehouse. And the trusted data warehouse, so in the way that it is really accepted in the organization and nobody is questioning and asking anymore regarding the data. When we had achieved that, we thought, okay, now based on the typical dashboards, typical reports you are doing, we need now to do the next step here. And then how the topic comes about data strategy, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and so on and so on. And there's a big hype and everybody's talking about this. And that time we thought, okay, we need somebody to help us a little bit to structure this process. And this is exactly where Martin came in, where we must start at, okay, what is a data strategy we want to implement? What are, so to say, the long-term things we want to achieve, where we still have to do something in, I call it the backbone, how to get the data, how to make sure that we have the data and the quality available in the amount and history that it is then helpfully for, or helps us for the future data topics we want to implement. And what are those things that we can work already today on? And then starting to introduce the whole topic. Around this then, based on this, and maybe you know this already, Martin, is that we started several elements because there's different aspects in this arena. So it's about first of all, about the business strategy. So how does our data strategy fits into the business strategy, to break it then down? Within these elements, you have then, I call it the data analytics part, the data products, the business cases you have to model, and see, okay, exactly what is helping you and your organization along certain topics with these key elements. Below then, or one of the key elements is also finding the right technology. So what will be the analytics architecture? How do we bring data together? How do we update strategies, and so on and so on. But there's also what is for me very important, an organizational aspect as well as a people aspect. From an organizational aspect, you have to make sure that you introduce, from my perspective, a data mindset in the way that we started to implement a data governance initiative, what is still ongoing and then developing further and further and further. So getting the data governance structure in place, because also, and I don't have to tell you that, besides GDPR and all these topics, you need a certain structure to make sure that you have these, I call it data under control, and that you data manage them as asset as well. And then the other very important element for me is people, also to have the right people, the mindset, the change management, understanding that data helps them in the future on all levels. I mean, I don't know, I guess you can still remember, Martin, where we even had this, some board members of Kuehne and Nagel, a discussion about data maturity, what could be path of this. So you have to start from several anchors to introduce this data mindset as well. And this starts, as I said, corporate, but also on those who are really sitting in front of, for example, a CRM system and entering data there.
Yeah, I mean, when I'm trying to explain our customers what is a data strategy about, I always draw this picture that at the top you have this pyramid, and it's about your company vision and your mission, which should be broke down into objectives, into milestone key results, and then you have to think about the first layer of a data strategy. So what are your data assets and the data products you build on top of those data assets to create data value? And each data strategy should be use case driven in order also to create value not only for the company, but also for the users of the data and the analytics. And then you need a good fundament. So what I mean by this is you need, and you already said it, you need technology, but you really need the right amount and complexity of technology. It doesn't make sense if you have, let's say, a customer data platform, but you're just doing descriptive analytics where you just compare key performance indicators and not doing any predictive analytics. So it has to be really aligned with your use cases. And then on the next level, you need an organization. So you need structures, processes, rules that also are aligned to the technology, to the data architecture. So without the proper organization, it will overwhelm the people with the technology. And then at the lowest level, and I think that's the most important thing, because this builds the basis for everything, are your people, and they have to fit into the organization. So you need the right amount of people, you need the right skills, and that is all about data culture, which is, I mean, there's so many studies that tell you 60 to 90% of all data and analytics projects fail. And one reason is there is no data culture. So people don't want to use data, and also one thing is data literacy, so they don't know how to use data. That's also very important. And I think this is not something special about the supply chain, but that is relevant for all the companies. What I'm eager to know also, Andreas, is what do you think makes the supply chain so special, or what were the main challenges you had to face during the last years?
There's several elements. So when you take the overall company with all the data, is I think in a supply chain, and especially in the logistics companies, is these massive amount of data you can collect. Yeah? So there's so many data points that you can collect that you really sometimes can lose, so to say, the red line here. And then what is differently based to other topics, so it depends now in which area you exactly want to go. But on the other side, there are certain elements, and I think the speaker before also, when I listened to the last 2-3 minutes, spent a little bit in the same direction, is there is in a supply chain so many things that can happen. That is sometimes difficult also really to find in the right way to say, okay, where does AI, machine learning and things make sense? Knowing also that you have to have a data strategy where you have to have multiple things aligned and connected to this overall. And then you have things like what we all know, COVID, that can maybe corrupt any kind of predictions because of an event that never has happened before.
Yeah, I notice, especially from supply chain for the pharmaceutical industry, because of COVID, I think two things happened. The first thing is the need for certain medicals changed dramatically during the COVID crisis, but also the supply chain itself was disrupted because of lockdowns and all the demand forecast prediction models didn't work anymore because they were trained on past data, and the past data only described the normal past, but not the new normal. And so even you couldn't train a new model because you hadn't any data to train the new model. And I think this was especially a challenging time for a lot of data scientists. By the way, how many data scientists are now working, or people related to data and analytics at Kuehne and Nagel?
So we started, and I know sometimes, so we started this approach a little bit, say, where we definitely knew where we want to go, but we exactly said, okay, we need to do this by a step-by-step approach. It doesn't make any sense from our perspective to start, let's say, with 100 data science, and then you get lost in everywhere. So we started very small. So we started, I think, in the beginning we had 2, 3, and now we are up to 15 data scientists. And then we have the BI setup, data warehousing, and so on. And so in general it's bigger, but the data scientist is really slowly growing. And because I think what is also important, that they really connected to the business side. Yeah? So we have not anything that we say, okay, now there's a data science team and they get something thrown over and then let's do them something. They are really along with us in the journey also of our business strategy, processes, and so on, that they fully understand what is driving us as well. So they are really connected to the different business units or functional units to make sure that we have the best out of them.
Yeah, that's also what I see. A lot of companies, they build those ivory towers, their data lab or AI lab, and they do. I mean, if you hire a data scientist with a PhD and he only worked in research and academics before, he's expecting to continue that. But research does not create any value for the business, and the projects for business are quite different than a research project. And often they don't create any value. And this is also, I think, one tip or recommendation for all the companies out there. Integrate your data science into the domain, into the business domain. And how long does it take? I mean, there are no data science expert for logistics that are, you can just hire on the market. But how long does it take to get this domain expertise into the data scientists?
Also, I have to say, I'm really, really lucky that we found really excellent people here. No? So depends now to definitely again to different areas, but at least in the areas where we started, it was, and especially in the area where we started, was a little bit in the direction of sales and marketing. So it's not too much only dedicated to supply chain. So therefore, it went quite quick. I would say 3 to 6 months until really they brought. Already value their own thoughts and ideas within the round and the discussion, and really delivered the first. And I remember our first, I call it my prediction product that we really brought live and workable was within 8 months. From really the starting point, there are some data in a data warehouse until we have something established in a dashboard that can be used by a variety of people to make their or see their prediction in regards of different elements.
Yeah, I think those are those quick wins you have to start with in order to show also the people that it really makes sense to put effort into the data and analytics, but not only put effort of the data scientists, but also of the business users, because probably the business users were quite involved in the process.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, you also know, this is why we started also these data strategy workshops with a variety of people. We have not done this only with the business units. We have invited the data scientists. We have invited the BI team. So we have had a couple of different aspects, let's say, out of an organization to work and establish a data strategy, and also to get out what are, we call it the low-hanging fruits, so where we can start quite quick without big data engineering and so on to show certain value already, because in the end somebody will ask you what is the value of data science, because you spend money on that. But on the other side also to develop or identify those things that is in the long term feeding into the strategy, but where we now we have to prepare, again, I call it the backbone, to make sure that what you said already have then the data in the right way available, so that you can also train systems and models. No?
Yeah, I remember one of our workshops where we had this head of marketing, head of IT, head of sales, head of, I don't remember it. And then later on, we also invited the sales manager as the potential user of the application. And I think all people learned from each other about their own business and how the business process of sales works. And I think this is very important, this onboarding, getting everyone on the same vision and on the same level of knowledge.
And I think, sorry that I quickly interrupt you, but I think is an important, or for me, a super side effect of this data strategy when you go across functional unit and business units. A lot of companies, to a certain extent, have a traditional silo set up, and you work in your silos and you know exactly how everything is going on, and you are fine with that. With this data strategy, with these data exchange talks also, so to say, the business units, functional units understand each other. So there's also a broader, let's say, move into changing understanding of the other side, so that you then, within the data strategy, have an approach that has then the aim to support all these elements and areas, and everybody knows that they play a key or part in this whole story. No?
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned that you started with marketing and sales. So why did you put the focus in the first place on marketing and sales and not, let's say, on the logistics operation? I think it's freezing.
Topics clearly. You can hear me still?
Could you please repeat? It was your screen.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I think what I said is because 6 years ago we implemented a new CRM system, and in parallel we developed a new data warehouse. So we were quite confident that we have a data structure and data in the quality that we exactly can start with those kind of, call it prediction, AI topics, machine learning topics. Because what we don't want to have, what in some areas, and when I'm in discussion, a lot of others are facing, is that the data science jumping in, you think you have a super amount of data, but then the hustle starts, no? Because cleansing, engineering, and so on and so on. This is why we started there. From an operational point of view, we implemented still at that time a new transport management system and so on and so on. Also, there were some ongoings where we said, okay, let's start here. Here we have already a certain stage of data quality, and also with the aim of delivering best service to our customers, saying, okay, that has a value on both sides, for the customer, but as well as for us as internals.
Yeah. So speaking of data, when I compare, for example, your company to other companies from the non-logistics company, I mean, what I see is, the issue with the supply chain is that it's a supply chain, though there are many companies involved that form this chain.
Yep.
And each of the companies, they have their own data, and they do not share it with the other companies in front or after in the pipeline. Because, of course, when they share their data, the other might have an advantage in, for example, pricing negotiations. So, but I mean, that's an issue here, because often, for example, when we thought about implementing a demand forecast for pharmaceuticals, we realized that we need data from all the participants in the supply chain, but they don't give us the data. And I mean, this often other companies have the data you need to get the information out. So are there any initiatives, or do you already started something like data exchanges, or building data trusts, or starting data pools?
I'm absolutely with you. This is definitely a big topic. And now in one element, we already started with a third-party company to move into a certain direction for specific data into a kind of data sharing community. And it's not easy. It's really a mind change that you share data across different companies. Yeah? We started this with a very limited scope of a specific data domain, data set, where everybody feels now comfortable with. I think now with seeing the advantage, then hopefully within the next coming months and years, is that this comes more and more. And yes, sure, we also have this discussion about data pools, data trusts, and so on. But to be really fair enough, we are still in a discussion phase here, finding ourselves, also trying to understand what the benefits, impacts, and so on and so on. So it's more an evaluation process at the moment, or discovery process maybe is better, instead of really starting this. The only part is, again, what I said before, where we moved into a data sharing area is a specific data domain, where we now hope also see certain advantages out of that.
I think we are over time, but one last question. What is your final recommendation, your last words, how to start with building a data value chain?
Also based a little bit from my experience is you have to have the bigger picture, so to say, where you want to go. Not that the vision or even the mission can be adjusted here and there a little bit, but you have a good understanding, at least from the knowledge you have now, where you want to be in the next couple of years, and then start this journey, but start with small little things. Start and start now to develop something. Don't be afraid that the first thing he maybe gets didn't get the value that you expect, but start, get the experience, take the people along with this, involve them, and start now with some small little things. I can only say, based on how we started now, we developed a lot of trust also for the future based on these low-hanging fruits we have developed here and there to show the value, even sometimes not every time in money, but in value of satisfaction of employees, helping them to reduce admin work, for example, to show that there is a value, and then from there take it up.
Andreas, thanks for your last words.
Start small, think big.
Yeah, great last words. So thank you and good luck with continuing your journey.
Thank you. Thanks. I hope we see you soon. Bye-bye.
So thank you, Martin. Thank you, Andreas, for sharing this interesting case study with the audience. Let's now take a short 15-minute break and continue this interesting conference at, I believe, approximately 4:10 p.m., focusing on succeeding in the digital transformation journey of supply chains. Meanwhile, for those here, please feel free to visit the exhibition area in order to discover the great innovations of the tech sector. See you very soon and enjoy your break.
Putting the customer at the center of everything we do is the new mantra within our organization.
We want to make experiences as frictionless and seamless as possible.
And we still want to make sure that people feel the human aspect of our business.
You don't want a customer to know that you're a series of different departments. They want to know that they're talking to T-Mobile.
Salesforce enables our colleagues to do what they do best, which is build that relationship with our customers.
The beauty of the Salesforce platform is it gives us a 360-degree view of our customer.
When you're on a single system, everybody in the company can have a single view into the customer lifecycle.
You can really create an amazing end-to-end journey.
It's smart integration. Our rate of innovation has increased with the Salesforce platform because we're able to try things new very quickly, and if they don't work, then we go back to the drawing board.
We have the ability to change direction if we need to, because there's data there that is real time.
And then we move to the predictive insights. And that's what we need to run our business.
So right now, we can actually get the true power of being a global company by using Salesforce technology. It's super exciting.
The fact that we have one system rolled out globally is enabling us to innovate and execute in a way that we never could have done before.
Salesforce ci ha trasmesso una sicurezza che i dati dei nostri stimabili, amabili clienti vengano in qualche maniera rispettati.
Salesforce has been a guiding light, showing us what is possible when you platform everything around the customer.
Welcome back to the second part of Digital Supply Chain Europe. And thanks to those who just joined us. I'm Carla Rosen-Vacher, Outreach Communication Officer for the Luxembourg Center for Logistics and Supply Chain Management at the University of Luxembourg. And I am pleased to continue this conference with you. Let's continue this afternoon focusing on succeeding in the digital transformation journey of supply chains with a presentation entitled How to Embrace AI, Artificial Intelligence, Demystifying the Technical Challenge. Ernesto Rodríguez is co-founder and chief operating officer of Tryolabs, a global company specialized in designing and implementing AI-based solutions for enterprises since 2010. Ernesto is also a board member and co-founder at MonkeyLearn, a US-based product company that democratizes access to machine learning, and NLP, which I learned is natural language processing, for companies worldwide. Welcome, Ernesto. The floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. I want to start by saying that it gives me a lot of joy to be here in Luxembourg, of all places, talking about artificial intelligence. We have part of the European Tryolabs team here, also part of some of our clients. And really it feels a little bit weird too, because I think when we started, around 12 years ago, AI was mostly a radical technical concept, and yeah, right now it grew to something that, you know, it's all here and it's becoming super important for everyone. So I think it's been our privilege to be part of that evolution and that growth of this technology that we love, and that it's changing how we do things, how we interact with our systems day to day, and it's changing how companies are working. And I also want to thank you to the Luxembourg Chamber of Commerce and all these institutions in Luxembourg that are encouraging the use of AI and are really making sure that we have the right tools to move forward and to do some important changes that are going to be great steps for the future. So we are going to talk about how to embrace AI, demystifying the technical challenge. And this talk is a little bit about the mindset of clients when they approach, or the companies when they approach AI projects for the first time, and what happens and how can we help. So a little bit about us. We do AI. We build custom AI solutions. As our presenter mentioned, we work with, we are a global company and we work with clients here in Europe. Super interesting companies like Allianz, Global Investors, CFL, SES Networks, and we have some other clients also in the US. So when I talk about artificial intelligence, I want to mention 3 fields that are, I think, are the best way to describe what we do. We work a lot with computer vision to basically find the information in videos and in images. We also work a lot with natural language processing, which helps you with high volume text to get insights from that. And we also work with forecasting models to predict demand, for example, or to predict the behavior of a system and trigger some things with that. In these 3 fields, at the end of the day, what we do is creating models that are machine learning models that try to maybe optimize a process or automate a process. So what we are going to talk a little bit about is a specific project in forecasting, right? It's a collaboration we had with CFL, and it was about occupancy prediction, right? The CTO of CFL was going to be here in the stage with me talking about this, but he couldn't come. So I'm going to try to do my best to describe what the project was about. But yeah, it's one of these collaborations with companies here in Luxembourg. As you know, Luxembourg is pretty small and everyone knows each other. So remember, we got in contact with them through the Loft and through the Luxembourg Open Innovation Club. And when we started, collaborating and talking about this opportunity, we figured out that they were actually next door to our office, which in Luxembourg, I think it happens all the time. It was literally next door, so that was good for collaboration. So yeah, when we started working with them, let me tell you a little bit about how that collaboration started. So for them, it was super important to, or a problem that was started to become important was to predict and forecast the occupation of spaces in parking lots, right? So the idea behind that is that when you, in a train station, when you have your parking all occupied, it means that you are using more trains, right? Because people goes there, and for the long distance, it takes a train. At the end of the day, it's also a good thing for the environment because you are reducing the carbon emissions of cars, right? So we talked to them about this idea. We started thinking about how the forecasting should work. They had 2 train stations with sensors where these sensors were picking where cars were parked or not. But that was static data, and there was no predictions based on that. So we started working together and working with Arnaud's team, and basically coming up with an idea for forecasting 1 hour in advance and 1 day in advance how the occupation will look like, right? So the good thing about this collaboration, or the first good thing, is it was that they had very good and clear business goals, right? They wanted to predict a thing that was important to them and that we can measure, right? And one of the enablers for us was that they have the right data, right? They had their own technical platform that they were using to store data from those sensors, and we can use that to connect to our models and start with these predictions. It was something that for CFL was already solved. You know, they already have this platform that was storing all this information, so that was super important. And then the other point was the collaboration between teams, right? They were working hand to hand with us and discussing the best way to create this solution, and gave us access to all we needed to do that. So let me talk a little bit in a more general way about how companies like CFL or the mindset that they have when they try to do AI for the first time, right? In this collaboration that I was talking about, they came with an idea, but typically what happens with clients when for the first time they try to tackle AI projects, big companies trying to do that, they kind of feel overwhelmed by the technical challenge, right? They worry about things, and like the main questions they come to us with are, how many PhDs do I need to do this? What's the possibility for us to do the state-of-the-art algorithm, or what's the best way for us to, get to a 99% accurate prediction, right? So In our experience, that's not the best way or the best questions to start thinking about when it's the first time you want to work with AI, right? It's not because of the technical challenge is not important or not relevant. It is super important and can be very complex. But we think that if you ask yourself other questions, you may find a simpler solution that's still AI-driven, but that could give you very good results without having to start a very big endeavor with a lot of complexity in the AI part. So what do we recommend to think about the first time you start an AI project? The first component is obviously the data. Are you storing it? Can you get it? What are the best ways to interact with it and the formats? Not all companies are saving the data they need, so if you are planning on doing that, you need to think about your data collection needs. Data is the fuel of this process, right? It's, for us, sometimes our work is to process data and to understand it and to try to get some output from it. But the opportunity may start with the data you have, or if you don't have it and it's not easy to get, it could be the first bottleneck, right? So that's one of the important points. The second recommendation is to find the right problem, right? Which means a lot of things. One is that it's something valuable, right? We are, I think, a lot in line with this past talk that I heard today, and they say start. I think it was start small but start, or think small but start, something like that. The idea is to find a problem that is not too difficult, but it's valuable, right? Sometimes the first try with AI for a company, it's also a trial, you know. If they don't get the results expected, then they are not able to convince people to move with other AI endeavors, and that's probably the end of the way to innovation in that regard in many cases. So pick the right problem. It should be something that it's valuable, but it's not too hard to solve with the current technology. Remember that AI is not magic. Sometimes we have to educate some clients about that. And the other thing is that it should be a problem where the right problem is also a problem where people are on board with working on that. You will be much more successful if more people are cheering for you to solve that problem than if you have some retractors or deniers of that. And the third recommendation will be to pick the right metric, right? So we have clients coming to us sometimes thinking about, can we do something that it's 90% accurate, right? And for us, it's not the right metric to try. We usually try to use a business metric, right? So if you are, for example, measuring margins or profit, that's a better way to do it than trying to track a very technical metric, right? And on that last point, I think the important thing is that the business metric, it's a business goal that will help you give structure to the process, right, and to the whole thing. Once you have the right business goal, you will be able to get the right technical metric, right? So, for example, if you want to increase your margins, then maybe there is an accuracy or one metric that you want to use to tie to that business goal. And I think that also, in our experience, helps aligning expectations, right? We will not see clients thinking about something that it's magical or impossible to solve with AI. We will not have the technical team trying to solve a problem that it's you know, an eternal R&D thing, but it's going to be something that becomes a little bit more as an engineering problem to solve, right? So, oh, let me get back one. All right, so the last thing I wanted to say, it was the slide before, but I don't know what happened. In CFL, in the case that I was talking at the beginning, I think it was a success case because we had all these components, right? We had the right problem, they were already saving the right data, and we were able to collaborate in a way where the expectations were really aligned, and we managed to give really good results, and we were able to show a good first POC with artificial intelligence, right? And for them, it's a huge win to be able to show that. That's the that's the slide. Sorry. So finally, I wanted to invite you guys to this after conference event that we are hosting today at El Barrio, where you guys can get to know the rest of the Tryolabs team, and we can talk a little bit about these opportunities and get to know each other a little bit better. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ernesto, for your great insights. We will now continue with a presentation delivered by Jeremy Haycock, Managing Director, Europe of NYSHEX, which is the New York Shipping Exchange in my hometown. The majority of Jeremy's career was with Maersk and Damco, serving in executive management positions in a variety of global locations, including Denmark, Italy, Japan, the UK, Singapore, South Korea, Sri Lanka, Sweden, and the United States. Wow. Jeremy is now the European Managing Director of NYSHEX, which is a digital container shipping platform, championing two-way contract commitments and adherence. Jeremy will join us remotely from the UK for a presentation entitled The Importance of Being Able to Enforce Two-Way Commitments Through Digital Performance Tracking in Ocean Transportation. So as we connect to Jeremy, please give him a warm welcome.
Well, thank you very much. Very much appreciated the warm welcome, and I'm so sorry I can't be there with you in person. But let me start out by reading out a few headlines from the press that I picked up this morning. The performance of ocean carriers in meeting historic demand for their services and the unusually high cost to move ocean containers are of interest and concern to regulators, legislators, and the public globally. Or 54 container vessels in queue to enter Los Angeles. Or order your Christmas presents now, because otherwise on Christmas Day there may just be a picture of something that's not coming until February or March. Or carriers are deploying greater levels of capacity on the ocean, on the Asia-North Europe trade, despite relatively flat growth in volume. But the injection of supply is being countered by congested ports, delaying vessels, and inland logistics bottlenecks, slowing equipment turnaround. Or supply issues hold back European production. Containers pile up at global ports as congestion worsens. The container shipping industry is creaking under the strain of high demand, and we have deployed more vessels and containers than prior to the pandemic, yet we still see unfortunate delays leading to missed sailings and missed capacity. And finally, a spokeswoman for IKEA confirms that the company has bought additional containers and chartered own vessels in order to redress a product shortage. I think you all get the picture. the industry is in turmoil. Ladies and gentlemen, the container industry is really hurting, and many will argue that there is little that can be done, that it's all outside their control. But there are things that can be done. And one of the things that can be addressed is to change the way agreements are made. Agreements that can finally mean something, agreements you can trust, and agreements you can rely on. When you sign, for instance, a lease agreement, do you expect that this will result in the parties to the agreement sticking to what has been stipulated therein? Do you expect that you will get access to the property you leased on the dates you agreed? Well, yes, of course you do. In container shipping, however, agreements are not stuck to, and there are no consequences for this. The agreements are not binding, and so contracts are not worth the paper they are written on. As a result of this, and other factors, of course, there is no trust in this industry. And this creates a huge, unsustainable problem for all parties involved. For instance, for importers and exporters, this means that they're unable to count on their goods being shipped. Forget about on time, it's whether they're shipped at all. Now, you may think that when you agree on a price and a volume with an ocean carrier, that this will mean you now will be able to ship or receive your goods within that agreement. Unfortunately, today, that is far from the truth. Lack of reliable contracts means that logistics managers and the like can't forecast, and they cannot manage their supply chains effectively. And we've seen now more than ever, the result is empty shelves in stores, factories having to shut down, conveyors standing still, and even people losing their jobs. The ramifications are quite frankly huge, and society at large is paying a very high price, right down to the end consumer. To combat this, inefficient supply chains with excessive inventories are created, and logistics managers are forced to rethink their supply chain strategies. A great example of this is that what used to be just-in-time principles became just-in-case principles. From super efficient supply chains to supply chains with large inventories created in order to make buffers because of the lack of ability to trust the agreements made and whether your cargo will ship at all. For ocean carriers, on the other hand, this also has its problems. This results in an inability to know with any confidence whether the contracted cargo is actually going to show up, and results in empty capacity on vessels, even in these times when space on vessels is otherwise so nearly impossible, near impossible to come by, as I mentioned earlier on, as often the cargo is just not ready to ship, as was agreed. And to combat this, ocean carriers overbook vessels, which often results in them leaving cargo behind. So this vicious circle results in an enormous amount of waste, which nobody benefits from. Tens and tens of billions of dollars are wasted every year. And this also creates unnecessary negative environmental impacts, of course. So what is needed? Well, it seems pretty obvious, perhaps, but it is something that appears to be very, very difficult. And at least it's not something that has been achieved over the past many decades. We need trust, we need integrity, and this will result in an ability for all parties to forecast. We need to make contracts binding, and there needs to be consequences if either party does not live up to the agreement made. And of course, there needs to be an ability to reliably and neutrally monitor contract performance, bringing default rates down below 1%. And thankfully, the solution is out there today, where you can get two-way committed digital contracts. You can get a neutral party monitoring the contract performance through digital interaction with the parties of the contract, where there are financial consequences for defaulting on the agreed terms of the contract, so the parties each have a stake in the game. And there's a fair and transparent dispute resolution of exceptions governed by an independent body or council with representation by all involved parties. All this results in default rates of less than 1%, and that has been seen in the past, enabling much less waste and significant efficiency improvements. You can now trust agreements that are made. So now more than ever is the time when we finally make agreements mean something in this industry for the benefit of everyone, as I said before, right down to the end consumer, who ultimately is the one who's paying for these inefficiencies. After all, isn't it time also in the container shipping industry that when two parties make agreements, that they do so with the intention to live up to that agreement, if at all possible? Why else would you make agreements in the first place? It is time that this industry grows up and becomes trustworthy, and where you can rely on agreements so everyone can optimize their ability to manage their supply chains, to fill ships, and to ensure consumers have access to consumables. And finally, a solution is now available in the European market too. NYSHEX, or the New York Shipping Exchange, have successfully brought our neutral solution into the US market over the past few years, building in integrity to the agreements that were made. And we have now launched in Europe too. Our mission is to create efficiencies using digital technology and removing unnecessary waste. And that's all I have to share with you. I thank you for your time, and I wish I could have been there with you in person, but I wish you all a wonderful conference, and I hope I can be there next time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeremy, for sharing your expertise with our audience, and we're sorry that you couldn't be here as well. Now, to open our very last topic of this afternoon, focusing on e-commerce, our next speaker will give a presentation entitled Surpassing Customer Expectations Through Driver Motivation in Last Mile Delivery. Benedikt Stolze is the founder and CEO of Urbify, a Berlin-based technology company that develops the operating system for last-mile delivery. Urbify creates superior delivery experiences through quality-oriented incentive systems for delivery drivers, coupled with efficient routing algorithms to ensure reliable, on-time delivery for end customers. And how important is that? Thank you for traveling from Berlin to Luxembourg, Benedikt. It is a great pleasure to have you with us today. And thank you for Urbify's partnership with the LCL. Please let's give a warm welcome to Benedikt Stolze.
Hello? Great. So thank you, first of all, Carla, for the introduction. Thank you so much for having me. Today, I will talk a little bit about how we can surpass customer expectations in last mile delivery. I think last mile delivery, everyone is acquainted to, and every one of us experiences it every now and then, particularly when you order online. It's those guys that bring you the parcels. Sometimes they don't bring them to you at all. Sometimes they just drop them off at the store. Sometimes they leave them at the parcel station. There's lots of different things that are going on here. But before I jump into that, let me give you a little bit of an introduction of Urbify. Although the colors look like DHL, I think Urbify needs some explanation at the start. And here's a good overview to provide just that. So what we do is we focus on the last mile. So meaning everything that's happening from fulfillment all the way to the reception of the end customers, what any kind of delivery that you can think of. So we're talking groceries, we're talking e-commerce parcels such as clothing, such as beauty products, any kind of these things. And what we do there, we take a closer look at all the customers we have, and what we see is that they have very different depth of value chains that they're actually looking for in our services. So for example, if we look at ASOS or the Hut Group that we're servicing in Germany, you can see that they actually want us to distribute their goods all across Germany. So we have central hubs, we have a line haul system, Local hubs regionally, there's 12 of them in all metropolitan regions in Germany. And then we have, of course, the last mile delivery, return to sender, performance tracking, but also customer service. Depending on the customer, we really offer all of this, but sometimes customers say, okay, we actually have our own network. We only want the last mile delivery. In the case of Rewe, which is the largest German e-grocery delivery service out there, we're collaborating with them and providing a solution that does just that. Then you can see the second dimension on the left-hand side. So we're looking at software, personnel, and infrastructure. So when we really want to get these services off the ground, we have to take a closer look and see what's really required. And what we do and what we perfect in is software. However, what you can also see is that software doesn't deliver parcels, which is why you also need personnel and infrastructure. And for that, we usually partner up with very strong transport companies that enable us to really provide that service to all of our customers. So pretty much a one-stop shop solution. There we go. To sum this up, and that's kind of also how we explain it to customers, is what we say is that Urbify is the Amazon Flex for everyone who's not Amazon. And I think Amazon Flex is a good analogy because Amazon Flex is not just the software, but it's also the coordination and organization of transportation and whatever stands behind that. I'm not sure if I'm using the clicker right, but it says next. There we go. As I said before, software does not deliver the parcels. This is also for us as a tech company a very, very important realization that we had to come to. And we did come to that realization the hard way. But now that we have that realization, that actually brings us a huge step forward. And that's also what I want to talk about with you today. It's not the software that's delivering the parcel, it's this guy, right? You've probably seen the guy. Different types of boxes that he or she is delivering. Nowadays, they look like that, wearing a mask and sometimes rubber gloves. But these are, let's say, the urban heroes that are creating a good or a bad experience. Because all you can do in terms of software is good and well. However, what we do experience on a day-to-day basis is that reality always hits hardest when you're in a daily operations. So that means flat tires of vehicles. That means you can't reach a customer because there is no reception. Usually only happens in Germany. But there's also other reasons for that. And this is really where we have to focus on to empower this very person to deliver the utmost quality and the utmost service. Because if there's a flat tire, you can have all the technology you want. You got to swap that tire out before you can actually continue in the process. And now I want to introduce you to something that you probably are not aware of, but which is a very daily struggle that a lot of people that are working in the industry are facing. So the working conditions are not very, very good. I don't want to name any of the companies that are, let's say, working in this domain. It's usually primarily a subcontractor problem. Nonetheless, you can also see it with some of the big brands in the industry. And what you see there is that the drivers, they tend to have to jump in on very short notice, so they can't really plan their days. They have to sub in if there's somebody sick or if there's extra demand and they need extra personnel. What you also see in the industry is that the guys are being made, let's say, responsible for any damages that they do to the vehicle or to anything else, and then that money is being extracted from the drivers. So it's really not a nice industry. And what you also see is that efficiency and productivity, it's all good and well, but we really have to see that there's a breaking point nearing where we really have to see whether the drivers, humans, are actually getting to the point of not being able to deliver this anymore and also not providing the quality that everyone is expecting them to provide, because it's just about efficiency, doing more, doing quicker things, and that's really a big struggle. And that's pretty much in a nutshell. You don't have a predictable working routine. You have extreme power disbalance between the contractors and the principals, but you also have very, let's say, terrible working conditions, such that really the productivity is reaching levels which are beyond human, so to say. So what's the result of all that? Well, the drivers are demotivated, right? So they don't want to work in that field anymore. There's lots of fluctuation. but you also have extremely bad customer experience, right? So the people are really nervous, they're really stressed, they just throw the parcel over, they try to find whatever way possible to deviate from given processes and making the experience the way it should be for the end customers. And in the very last instance, usually these people leave their jobs and go back. This is something that we could observe with COVID times. You could imagine that during COVID times, there was a huge peak in personnel, right? But now that it's getting lower and lower again, people are actually leaving the delivery industry and they're returning back to working in restaurants and working in other service areas because it's much less stress in comparison to the delivery industry. But this is kind of weird because when we look around in the industry, we have a huge problem. There's enormous driver shortage. So all of the companies that are out there, they're all looking and struggling to find drivers that are actually working in the last mile delivery space, let alone very new entrants coming into the scene, such as Gorillas, Volt, Get Here, Flink, all these kind of delivery startups that are funded heavily and they're all fighting for the same resources, which is drivers. Plus, I mean, COVID-19, we already talked about it today, it's a new normal, so we're not saying that COVID not only made an increase in e-commerce, but it's here to stay. So yes, it did increase tremendously, but there's no return back to the levels that we've seen before. So knowing all this, it's kind of weird that no one is really taking a stance and putting the driver in the focus and saying, okay, we want to create a condition or an environment where the driver can really excel, and that the driver is actually, being treated the way he should be because he's a very important resource in this entire process. And this is what we do differently at Urbify. So what we do is, of course, we look at efficiency, of course, we look at productivity, and of course, we look at the experience that the end customer has. However, we are well aware of the fact that the driver is absolutely crucial to get the utmost and the best experience possible. And that is why we're putting the driver in the focus. That is why we make our software driver-centric, and this is how we can actually surpass customer expectation and thereby also battling off some of the competitors in the market. But let's get concrete on how we do this. And since Carla already mentioned it, we are collaborating with the LCL on some of these projects. And this is one of the topics that's definitely pressing for us. Some of these things are already implemented in our solution. Some are yet to come. And I'd like to walk you through what we are doing here. So first of all, what we do is we provide the drivers an incentive system, an incentive program. So what that does is, if a driver is actually delivering superior quality as compared to others, then this person should actually be benefiting from delivering exactly that quality. So what does that mean exactly? First, it's getting your work done on time. It sounds pretty strange, right? When we're here in this room, showing up to work on time, okay, what's that? But in this industry, working with, let's say, lots of people, it's very personnel intensive. You do have some people deviating and not having the understanding that you have to start your work on time. So we track with our devices through our solution whether or not people are starting their shifts on time. This is entirely crucial for actually being able to deliver to the end customers on your tour also on time. So we're checking that. Secondly, we're checking whether or not the person is also loading the vehicle in the required time. So we have a geofence location around all our warehouses that we're servicing, and when the driver enters the warehouse, he checks in, then we know, okay, he's there on time. As soon as he loads the vehicle and exits the geolocation, we also know that he loaded the vehicle on time. Then we have the same thing for all the drop-off addresses, so we track, did the person actually deliver to all the required addresses, and did he do that on time? How long did it take that person to deliver? And these kind of things are collecting points. And in the end, you get a score for every single tour and every single order you do, and that is something that is personal to the driver. Of course, we use that also to track and identify good transport companies to not so good transport companies, but this is a personal score to the driver. This personal score is then also presented in the next scene. between or benchmark between other drivers. So then the driver is actually using this as a gamification to see, okay, well, I'm performing pretty well as compared to others. And this is interesting because all of a sudden we realize, okay, we can track performance and quality of individual drivers also for different use cases. So a driver that may be good in parcel delivery may not be a good driver in grocery delivery. These are things that we can differentiate now. And as soon as we can do that, we can create a profile of a driver and say, okay, well, this guy is exceptional in delivering parcels. So as soon as that person may change jobs, go to a different employer, he can actually take that profile with him and then submit its application, including our profile. So you have an Urbify profile that will show you how good you are in your job, and that's something, there is no transparency about that yet in the entire industry. Last but not least, we also want to give back to the drivers. So if you do perform well, if you do have great quality, this is beneficial to everyone involved, particularly the principals, meaning the brands, the e-commerce brands that really want the best experience for their customers. Well, then you should give back at this point. And this is the last component we're working on right now, which is essentially, we call it the blue collar miles and more. So these people, they got points for whatever they do at work and what they do in good performance. And these points they can redeem for whatever kind of goodie that they like, whether it's a PlayStation, an iPhone, a Journey, or even an Amazon voucher, anything like that. And this is our approach of giving these things back. This, again, as I said, is something we're working on right now, but to give you a hint on what this actually does, looking at the first 2 points that we already introduced in our software, we actually managed to surpass the quality and performance KPIs of the internal fleet and driver team of REWE. So we're really talking about a huge supermarket chain in Germany. They have their own drivers, they're branded with gear, they have branded vehicles, purpose-built vehicles also, and we have a fleet of, let's say, also good and big vehicles, but these guys do not have branded gear. They usually get the more difficult tours as compared to the internal drivers, of course, but still, with these mechanisms, we actually already made it possible to surpass the KPIs of the internal driver team. And we're actually here to improve this even further and also roll this out for all the other use cases we're servicing with ASOS, with the Hut Group, etc., to really make this the greatest experience possible. So I see that I have 2 minutes left, which is good. So if you're really down for exceptional delivery experiences, please stay in touch. And Carl, if it's okay, then maybe there's some questions for the last 2 minutes. Yes? Absolutely. It's stunning how important that is. And if you look at particular, let's say, I wouldn't call them customer complaints, but customer feedback, when they say, well, all good and well, but I was not delivered by a REWE vehicle, and the guy also didn't wear any REWE gear. So that is a crucial thing. Also, you'd be surprised to see how many people are awaiting their delivery, and they're really standing at their window to see, okay, what is that vehicle doing? So to give you an instance, just a little anecdote, when I was joining a driver on a tour, the vehicle that we were using on the tour lost the number plate in the back. And once we came to one of the customers up the stairs, he already told us that we didn't have a number plate on the back of our car. So that's the kind of scrutiny that you have with the end customers. Yeah. Then I think my time is up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Benedikt, for sharing this incredibly interesting presentation with us. So please stay on stage as we will directly continue this interesting focus on e-commerce with a roundtable entitled Affronting the E-commerce Surge, How to Meet High Customer Expectations While Operating in a Sustainable Way. This discussion will be led by Marianne Hoffmann, Project Manager, Directorate, General Industry, New Technologies and Research at the Luxembourg Ministry of the Economy. In this context, Marianne will be joined by Davor, Chair of Transport at the Chamber of Commerce in Vienna, Austria, Professor Benny Manton, Director of the Luxembourg Center for Logistics and Supply Chain Management of the University of Luxembourg, Jacques Laurent, CEO of Luxinnovation, and of course Benedikt, whom I introduced before. So Marianne, Jacques, and Benny, please join us on stage while we are connecting with Davor. Thank you.
Good afternoon and welcome to this roundtable. As announced by Carla, the idea of the roundtable is to talk about e-commerce logistics. Since the beginning of the pandemic of the COVID-19, e-commerce sales have surged. And this comes with a number of challenges for the service providers in this domain. On one hand, the customers, they demand for fast, a flexible, and a reliable delivery of their orders, which might, on the other hand, present a challenge for the companies. In addition, the companies, or there is an increasing demand towards the companies to operate in a more sustainable way. So therefore, my first question directly goes to Benny. Benny, what's your opinion on this? How can companies manage to tackle these different challenges and possibly also generate a win-win situation by having a delivery that is reliable, that is sustainable, and also profitable from an economic point of view?
Thank you, Marianne. It's an excellent question. I think one thing we have to do is to go back and look at the history of this sub-industry and how it has evolved over the years. So going back 20 years, we see the rise of the internet and the first attempts to develop online stores. Obviously, I'm talking about Amazon. Initially, it was mainly about books, and essentially, it's catered for the long tail of demand. So people would go online because they couldn't find what they wanted at the local store or at one of the bigger stores that stocked a large number of books. But online, you could find the long tail of all the rare books that normally would not be stocked at the store. Clearly, Amazon has grown over the years and started offering a wide variety of different products. And I recall that back then, about 15 years ago, we all were debating that this is probably the best solution in terms of warehousing, where you will have a single warehouse in the middle of the continent, which will house the entire inventory for the entire continent. Clearly, the model was not working like that. You cannot have such a giant store, such a giant warehouse that will have everything on spot. And we saw the redistribution of the warehouses to different locations. So suddenly you started having a Midwest, Southeast, and those kind of warehouses. But clearly, customers started gravitating their demand from brick and mortar stores to online environments. And as they did so, the demand for warehouses and delivery speed has increased quite dramatically over the years. So instead of having a central warehouse, as I mentioned before, which will take a few days for delivery, you see the warehouse gravitating closer and inching closer to the end customer. So now you have a trade-off. Do I need to bring it as close as to the customer, maybe put the warehouse in the city, or find the trade-off that will kind of optimize the efficiency of having everything in a single site and the speed that the customers are asking for. So we see all this gravitation over time. Clearly, with more demand, we see the development of better logistics and last mile logistics coming to the consumers. Then COVID came, and we saw this major disruption that consumers suddenly had to gravitate their entire demand from physical stores to online stores. With that, some were more prepared than others, but this pushed the trigger into this situation that people and stakeholders were scrambling to find quick solution to satisfy consumers. And we see the rise of many different online solutions. You can go and find things at Amazon, at competitors, and we see the development of more product specific. So you can go only for sports goods in certain places, only for groceries, and customers are developing certain degree of expectations. Clearly now we're going a little bit to normality, and we start buying stuff back at the normal brick and mortar stores. But even when I go online, definitely we do have some expectation. How quickly do we want the stuff to be delivered? We want the delivery to be reliable. We want it to be flexible. Or this day I'm working from my office. I want the delivery to be delivered to my workplace. Or maybe I don't want the delivery during the day. Just wait for the evening delivery. So all those domains or considerations are coming into the equation. So what I'm trying to say basically that this is a moving target in terms of what companies like Urbify next to me need to challenge. One day I'm looking for fastest delivery, but another day I'm looking more for flexibility, and certain features that were not there the day before may need to be required the next day. So clearly it's a moving target, and now increasingly I think what we are going to see that consumers will demand a little bit more sustainability. They want to see the product and delivery not having such a carbon footprint. And the question is, how do we find the new sweet point that will balance not just the efficiency and the speed, but also the point where we can deliver in a more sustainable way. So clearly there is no immediate bullet solution to that, and we see many endeavors in these directions, such as bike delivery, concentration of delivery at one point where customers will have to walk the last mile to pick up the delivery from a nearby store or from a nearby hub. And as I mentioned, this is still a working process as always.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Benny. Ben, in your presentation before the roundtable, you have been mentioning that you consider one of the key success factors for qualitative delivery to customers the development of your incentive system for drivers. In your opinion, what are other key success factors for qualitative delivery, and how do you manage those against also the operating costs that come with that?
Yeah, I think most of the aspects that are relevant for great customer experience were already mentioned by Benny, some way or the other. So one thing is for sure, customers do expect their deliveries to be there quicker and quicker and quicker. And there's plenty of players in the market that are setting that bar lower and lower and lower by, for example, Gorillas that delivers groceries to your doorstep within 10 minutes. That's pretty challenging, I would say. But it's a very different business model. We don't have to talk about the economics. That's a different story. But that's what you expect. So when we, for example, look at our use case we have with ASOS, we are really talking about you're ordering in the evening hours on the ASOS online shop, and you will have it delivered the next day in the afternoon. So certainly this whole topic of having it quickly is very important. Second thing is reliable. So when you say you will deliver it the next day in the afternoon, you'd want that parcel to be there. In particular, when you do, let's say, a route optimization, and based on that, you even communicate to the customer it will not be there between, I don't know, 4 and 10 o'clock in the evening, but it will be there in a 1 hour time frame. As soon as you bring that communication across to the end customer, the expectation rises that it will be there exactly in that time. And ideally, you can communicate that information as early as possible so that the customer only needs to be at home or the place of delivery for that particular hour and then can conduct its business. And then lastly, that's number 3, is also what Benny already referred to, is the flexibility. So how is it possible while something may already be in delivery? So the driver is already on his tour to deliver the parcel, and then you can actually still change and say, okay, my drop-off location has changed. And that is also, as Benny said, a moving target. It's extremely challenging once you've planned something and then variables and parameters are changing, partly drastically. It's very, very difficult. And there we will also see some solutions coming up. We already saw that also today during one of the speeches, which are these parcel lockers, right? Because they can give you the opportunity to just buffer the parcel either near to the work location, the workplace of the customer, or the home of the customer. And these things, they will all come together. And I think bringing these things together and making a good solution out of them, I wouldn't say there will never be the perfect solution, but bringing them together as good as possible, that will probably be the player and the provider for delivery solutions that will win the race.
Okay, thank you for this. Jacques, on my left side, LuxCaddy, you are operating in Luxembourg, which has certainly a lower population density than a city or compared to a city such as Berlin. What does this present as challenges on an operating level, and how do you manage this as a company?
All right, thank you for that question. Welcome, everybody. Yes, so yeah, Luxembourg indeed has a quite low density compared to big cities, and of course that, so for example, what they talked about, like deliveries with bike for Luxembourg, is quite hard to do because the density is not high enough. So we started 15 years ago, so that's a long time ago, and at the time we actually were looking for a logistics partner for doing our logistics, and unfortunately there was no logistic partner in Luxembourg that was capable of offering the kind of deliveries that we were looking for, which were, as they said, like we needed very flexible delivery, precise delivery hours, and also we have the other problem that we need to have controlled temperature delivery. So at the time, I'm not sure if it's available today on the Luxembourgish market, but at the time it was not available. So we had to develop our own logistics. That was quite challenging because we were not logistic experts, so we actually had to learn by doing, which we did. I think of all over 15 years, we have today, I think, a quite good logistics system. We use vans to deliver. We only have one central warehouse because we actually looked into having multiple warehouses, but for the business model that we have, we came to the conclusion that for us it was not interesting. But so we deliver for delivery vans, but we try to optimize our deliveries by creating large routes. So basically, we have deliveries contrary to, for example, deliveries by bike, where mostly you do one route for one delivery. So so we opted for a different model, where we have many different deliveries in one van, and of course, then we try to optimize the routes as good as possible. We also use IT systems for that, so I don't know if people know about the traveling salesman problem, but that's the problem of optimizing routes, of having like the fastest or the shortest distance to go to each point. So that was a big challenge at the beginning, where we have like, today we have semi-automated systems, but we still use manual personnel that knows about Luxembourg and how the traffic works and everything. So we combine the expertise of persons with the calculations of IT systems. But we are constantly working on the system. Next year we will probably implement an AI system to even more optimize this traveling salesman problem. And this is a very important step, because it's exactly here where the efficiency of the logistics, of our logistics come from. And it's only with optimized logistics how you can actually make this business model profitable.
Okay, thank you for this insights. And I will come back later on the contribution of technology and data in the domain of last mile delivery. But first of all, I would like to welcome Davor, who is connected remotely. Davor, we just heard in Mrs. Faast's presentation about the initiative Sustainable Logistics 2030 of Vienna and Lower Austria. The operational challenges that we just heard of that are faced by the e-commerce logistics companies, they also present challenges on the level of a city or of a region. In what way do you see that the logistic initiative by Vienna and Lower Austria can support companies with their operational challenges?
Thank you, Marianne, for the question. I hope you can hear me very well.
Yes.
So nice greetings from Vienna. First of all, I must say, I have two roles. I'm in one role, the CEO of a logistics company here in Vienna, and then second role in which I'm here, and thank you for the invitation for this. I'm the head of chamber for transport in Vienna. And in this role, it's very difficult because you have to balance the politic interests or the politic strategies of a city like Vienna, and at the other side, you have also to bring forward the interests also of the companies which are operating in Vienna. So this was when I started 2015, my first, challenge to balance all these interests together. In my company, I know I need it, I need this customer, I need these flows for transports, I can connect them and go on. On the other side, we thought about and considered, and I think Ms. Andrea Faast showed you in the presentation how we did it in detail. This 2030 initiative in Vienna helped us to bring together the companies, the economic side, and also the city Vienna, and also Lower Austria. So in this project, we solved conflicts to use flowing and stationary freight individual traffics. We tried to see how to save CO2, carbon dioxide. We tried to see also how we can reduce the volume of traffic without sacrificing performance and quality on the other hand, and also how we can develop logistics concepts that meet with broad consensus, and also how to develop and support pilot projects. The interesting thing is that we learned how to deal with these pilot projects in the beginning, we thought every pilot project will run and will work, but we learned complete different things from that. So at the end, we learned we have to try and fail. And many projects like Green to Home, this is a platform that takes care of delivery of parcels as well as the pickup of returns on the last miles. They survived in this way and they're running really well. And I'm very proud of this project because first time two like Vienna and Lower Austria came together, the politics, the economical side, and found a platform to start pilot projects like that, and at the end also to try how it could work. Absolutely new, let's say, new companies and new possibilities and new solutions.
Thank you for this, Davor. It is often said that data analytics and new technological advancement are expected to be a great support for companies to achieve more efficient operations, and we could just hear this also from Jacques. But my first question goes to Davor. You just mentioned one of the key topics of the initiatives of Vienna and Lower Austria is sustainability. How do you consider that the increasing availability of data and the new technological developments can support you in reaching more sustainable logistics in this region?
You know, when you run a company, you try to be absolutely efficient. I heard it in the presentation also before. The planning of tours, also the planning of most efficient ways in a city is very challenging, especially in Vienna. We had most of the parking spaces have been closed for parcel and companies which are dealing with packages. And the first challenge was to sit together with the politics and try to open these parking slots. This was successful for us and opened also new doors and new possibilities to make the tours more efficient. And let's say the customer today expects just on time deliveries, the same day deliveries, and all these services, which are, let's say, getting more and more possible. But there must be also the possibility to have open flows and open parking slots and spaces for all these companies to be effective. And a change is currently taking place among all companies. And more, we want to integrate all this sustainability thinking also firmly into their operations. Most of the companies are not thinking forward, they're thinking from day to day. And this, for us, a really big challenge also to cooperate with these companies and bring them also to a different thinking of sustainability, which is very necessary and which are expected by the customers today. Especially the young people expect this. And also dealing and operating with electrical vehicles, for example. It costs a hell lot of money, and not every company can, let's say, finance that. And also we help these companies to think forward, to operate and to find the right financial possibilities to buy such vehicles. And you know, the wishes of customers and the reality sometimes is completely different and doesn't match together. But I think with this initiative 2030, we have a platform to support all these companies and also to bring all these companies forward.
Okay, thank you for this. Jacques, you have already been mentioning the technology that you are using in your daily operations. Could you please maybe elaborate further on this, and where do you maybe see in today's available technologies, limitations when facing the reality in your daily operations?
Yeah, so we're also talking a lot about data-driven business, data-driven logistics. I personally think, so yeah, we do have data and we work with data, but we are not data specialists. But there is a lot of data out there that you can actually rely on and that you can use. A very simple example is Google. So we use Google APIs, which have a lot of data information, for example, about traffic. So today, when we calculate optimized routes, we can rely on data that was collected by Google and that was made available and was analyzed by Google to create value that we can rely on. So today we have way better predictions of delivery times because of that data, which is not our data, but we rely on the APIs of Google who collect the data. You get the idea. So that is a good example. There's many more examples that I could give, but I just want to say that also, yes, we do use our own data, even if it's not in this buzzword big data. We don't do big data, but for example, we have what we have introduced, which I think not all the logistics companies are doing, is, for example, that we have a special interface for delivery feedback, which means that when someone does a delivery, so basically he has, like, the address of the customer was geocoded, so he has his route planning, his GPS is driving the driver to that location, and sometimes the address is not correct or the geolocation was not correct, so it's not the exact house where it was pinpointed. So, for example, then the driver, when he comes back, he has an interface where he can actually change the exact location of that customer. So that's, for us, it's very important because we have a lot of recurrent customers. So to optimize and to get a better user experience for the customer, it's important that if there was some trouble with the delivery, then we can actually change the exact location. There's also an interface where the driver can give instructions, like for example, it's not the house in front, it's the house behind, something like that. So that in order for the next delivery to be a better user experience for the customer. So those are small things that are possible to be done with technology and data. We have many other things, but I'm not going to talk about all of them. But so the second part of your question was do I see limitations? Well, that's a good question. I mean, I think today technology has proven many people wrong about what it's capable of doing. If I'm thinking about AI, which is a topic that I'm quite interested in, and I am also looking into using AI to optimize our workflows and our logistics and many other things, because we're not just doing logistics, we're doing that there's other things we can use technology to optimize. And I think there's quite a lot of things that we can continue to innovate on technology, and I don't really see a limit today. I don't know where the limit is.
Okay, thank you for this. Coming back to you, Benny, I know that in your master program of the Luxembourg Center for Logistics and Supply Chain Management, you put a lot of importance on data and analytics. How do you see the role of data in last mile delivery, and what, in your opinion, what kind of data do companies need to collect in order to facilitate more efficient operations?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Within our Master in Logistics and Supply Chain Management, we definitely train our students to be able to handle the data. They become a little bit of data scientists, customized for this domain of logistics and supply chain management. So they really know how to take the data and convert that into decision-making through optimization and other methods. Now, as to the question, what data do you need? I think I can ask back, what is the problem that you're trying to solve? So there are challenges from day one. Do I want to enter this market to provide last mile delivery for the customers? Can I provide the service there? Is the city infrastructure sufficient enough that I can provide services to the customers in a timely fashion? Do I have enough demand there to justify my operations and so forth? But most of the time we are looking into the more operational decision, and I think our colleagues here have already addressed many of those. Basically, what is the density of the cities that I'm serving? What are the congestion and traffic situation throughout the day? Maybe I can redesign my delivery so I don't try to deliver between 8 and 12, rather than move it a little bit earlier in the morning or a little bit later in the evening, or maybe try to be flexible with my operation as well, so I can move some of the home delivery to office delivery. There are different data sources that we can leverage. We need to monitor the performance of the drivers and the delivery, and we have seen a great example earlier, which can further give us information. Do I manage to deliver on time? Where do I face problems with my delivery? Is it just a city location that is a little bit more challenging? Or is it something about the driver that I didn't know before? Or is it something about the packaging that I need to manage differently? Or is it something about the sorting within the van that has to be managed in a better way? So all these little cues that you can collect and improve the efficiency of how you deliver better performance over time.
Okay, thank you for this. And I'm well aware that Urbify has done a project together with the Luxembourg Center for Logistics and Supply Chain Management related to e-commerce operations. Maybe Ben, you can share some insights of this project.
Sure. So one of the topics that we were curious about, and that's also pretty interesting to hear from Luxcity, was to understand how much population, how much density do you need in order to operate a e-grocery delivery service sustainably, financially in particular. And that's something that we took a look at and explored in a master thesis together with some master students from LCL. And that was pretty eye-opening to see, okay, what is really necessary in all of these aspects to also make this operationally sound in smaller regions or less populated regions as compared to, for example, Berlin. And there's possibly also very different concepts to apply in the different kind of cities or sizes of cities that you would be facing, or generally the infrastructure and what it will look like. And that's something that was very interesting. We're also very much looking forward to the next projects to come. What I would also like to pick up on is the discussion we just had until now, because data and technology, I think, is something that is being put to use by a lot of companies already. And when we talk about sustainability, the let's say components that are impacting the sustainability as of now in operations these days, particularly combustion engines, all these kind of things, these are things that are already being optimized by, for example, a route optimization, that we're reducing the number of kilometers driven by the vehicles, etc. So to really take that step to make deliveries more sustainable is, of course, for one aspect, it's the price or the investment that you take in order to change the fleet that you're operating, but also the surrounding in which you're operating. So if you have a high drop density, then you are probably inclined to use cargo bikes instead of larger vehicles and these kind of things. So I'm assuming that the data and the technology is one aspect that is, but is already being put to use, also using combustion engine vehicles. The interesting thing is going to be, okay, how are we going to change the infrastructure and also the assets that we're putting to use in order to create this sustainability? So taking a controversial stand here, but I'm just saying that I think we are already using technology to some extent, and now the question is how are we going to go forward, and that's also a question about how we're going to redesign cities, how are we going to develop new vehicle concepts, these kind of things that will be the drivers, in my opinion, of sustainable transport in the future.
Okay, thank you for this. And time is running, so I would like to conclude this roundtable by a last subject, and Ben, you have addressed it to a large extent already in your presentation before. This is the social dimension. So you mentioned that there's a lot of pressure put on the personnel that are doing the last mile delivery. And I would like to know from you, how difficult is it in Berlin for your company to recruit the drivers and the personnel in last mile delivery, when taking into account the context where there are many new entrants which are sometimes highly funded?
I think I'm back on. So yeah, that's a very, very important question. I think we're not the only ones facing that particular challenge. I think everyone else in the market who is competing about the same resources is facing a similar challenge. And funny enough, we actually launched like a job portal for delivery jobs, and we did that for the simple purpose because we were struggling to get the recruits in ourselves. And it's funny because right now some of those competitors that we are working with in the market, they're also on that platform, also trying to acquire drivers. And it is a real challenge. And I think whatever you can provide to those drivers, let it be a schedule that they'd like to work alongside, like for example, some of them just want to work in one particular shift. They only want to work on particular days. Then usually there's nothing like just a pension program, something like that. Like these kind of aspects to really make it interesting for the drivers to identify themselves with the particular company they're working for. And that's something that as of now is not really present. So when you talk to the drivers, if I deliver parcels for DHL or Hermes, where's the difference? They don't know. And that's something that we will change by introducing aspects that other employers are just not providing. And with that, I think we're very, let's say, very certain that we can acquire very top personnel in the future, and that will certainly also reflect in the results and the quality that we can deliver in our services.
Okay, thank you for this. With this very interesting insight, we reached the end of this roundtable, and I would like to thank each of my panelists for participating and sharing with us their perspective and their insights. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Marianne, Jacques, Benedikt, Benny, and Davor, for being with us today and for this insightful discussion. To conclude this second edition of Digital Supply Chain Europe, we will now focus on the innovations of the logistics and supply chain sectors with a startup dedicated session. I am pleased to welcome 5 startups that stand out for their growth potential, innovation, and quality of their solutions and products. From Luxembourg, Taiwan, Seoul, Tel Aviv to Brazil, discover their innovative solutions thanks to a 5-minute pitch per startup. So, let's start straight from Taiwan. We will now connect with Wayne Fan, Chief Strategy Officer of Frontier.cool. As it is quite late in Taiwan, let's give Wayne a warm welcome while we are connecting.
Hi there, how's the sound and visual? Hello?
Yes, hello. Wayne?
Yes.
Hi, great to see you. Great to see you.
Likewise. Actually, I was just able to log into the session, and I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for the kind intro. Let me know when I should start, and then thanks.
Oh, my pleasure. I was just going to say that Frontier.cool improves workflow, reduces costly shipping and travel, and shortens time to market. So we are eager to discover all of your solutions, Wayne. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you.
Okay, all right, so I'm just gonna go ahead and get started. My name is Wayne. We are from Taipei, and then you are right correctly. Right now we are at 12 o'clock midnight, and then very excited to be here today. So let's just get started. We are a collaboration software as a service type of solution for the fashion industry. And then our goal is to transform global textile supply chain, vertical chain, into an on-demand supply network. So how does that actually work? Let me share some background on the industry current affairs. So, all right, so basically after the pandemic, 93% of industry professionals think that design, development, and distribution, make merchandising and selling, all these steps should be digitalized and should be done digitally. This is a vertical supply chain, or those horizontal. All the work and services in this chain revolves around physical samples, physical materials, and then that has been the case for over 100 years. In the last 2 years, 3D technology is finally ready. So as you can see, you can't really tell the difference between these two images. One is done with actual fabric, the other one is computer-aided design. So the entire industry is going toward digital design to whether go to market faster, direct to consumer, all these benefits around designing digitally. However, the biggest problem is that we don't have enough digital materials to support 3D design. That's where Frontier comes in. We let users generate their digital materials, and then we have a strong intelligence, powerful intelligence search. So user can find the right stuff, designers can find the right material, and then therefore creating a global commercial network. These are the three pillars that Frontier sits on. We take that physical material and convert it into a digital material so you can use in 3D. This is what it looks like. And one of our core technology is that as of now, if you want to conduct 3D, you have to spend minimum $30K US dollars to $150K to buy expensive equipment, go through complicated training, and we turn all those processes with an AI training, turn it into an algorithm-based application. So as long as you have access to the internet, you can upload a 2D image, we can convert that into a 3D compatible asset. So that's what the world looks like right now. Ideally, the world should look like this. You get enough digital materials to support all these kind of designs. With digital designs, you can actually directly put them onto places like Shopify. And consumers can actually make an order, place an order, make a payment, then you go into production. This is what we call the on-demand manufacturing process. Our business model is that traditionally, everything works offline. You get a vertical, entire supply chain works offline. By moving the data into the cloud, by moving the workflow into the cloud, we get a digital network. And these are the basically the users currently using Frontier for these purposes. And then eventually we're gonna get a global industrial network of data hub. This is our paying structure, basically pay as you go kind of a payment plan. These are the kind of the customer acquisition growth that we're currently experiencing. These are the digital asset growth that we're experiencing since last year till now. We're about 1 year and 4 months old, and this is our technology 2D converting to 3D. We publish a conference paper on CVPR, and these are the brands that our users actively engage on a daily basis. There's minimum 500 suppliers behind these brands working with them on product development, and thousands of materials being digitized on a monthly basis. We secured one seed round funding of $1 million last year, and then we're looking for another round in the next quarter. These are the founders. I'm on the very right, and these two are my college friends. back in school, from back in school. These are our global team. And we're actually very lucky to take third place in the Select USA e-commerce pitch session last month from 200 companies all over the world. And this is some comments from some of the brands that we work with. Bestseller, they're from Denmark. Helly Hansen, based in Europe. Some of the supply chain big names in the APAC area. This is an on-demand manufacturing giant based in Hong Kong. So these are the reviews from the current users and the industry. So if you have more questions and if you're interested in what we're doing in the fashion industry, Google us up, Frontier.cool. Thank you very much for your time.
For that fascinating presentation and for being with us so
Did
late.
everyone get everything? I wasn't sure if I was actually broadcasting halfway through.
Yes, yeah, you were perfect. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being with
No
us.
problem.
Good luck with your project. Thank you.
Sure.
We will now continue this World Innovation Tour with a pre-recorded video from Brazil featuring Joyce Ribeiro, Chief Operating Officer of Optimum Supply. Optimum Supply seeks to provide integrated and sustainable, disruptive, innovative, and functional solutions to optimize the way companies buy and provide a unique experience for users. Let's discover Joyce's solution now.
Hello, my name is Joyce. I'm Chief Operating Officer of Optimum Supply, and it's a pleasure to be here with you today presenting at this great event. I want to especially thank the Luxembourg Ministry of the Economy for this opportunity. Optimum Supply is a British-Brazilian startup. We are based in São Paulo, Brazil, and we have extensive expertise in decision-making for procurement, offering a software solution and services of education and specialized consulting. The motivation for creating a company comes from the maturation of procurement area in companies worldwide. Purchasing decisions are increasingly strategic and complex, meaning that they have conflicting goals, many stakeholders' interests in their outcomes, and often multiple items requested in just one bid process. Our platform is designed to provide full support for decision-making in these scenarios, working with multi-criteria decision analysis, collaborative evaluations, and portfolio optimization to maximize value and transparency in our supplier selection with total compliance. Being able to consider multiple goals in the decision-making, we also can drive ESG, environmental, social, and governance aspects in the process, reaching sustainable growth and long-term financial savings. Now, I want to show you a very brief example of a supplier selection process through our web platform. First, our user defines a sequence of steps that will be carried through the bid. Then he can create any kind of request for the suppliers that will fill up our forms online. And in the decision-making step, he will define the relevant criteria that must be considered in this decision and its weights. In this simple example, we have 4 criteria with different weights that are totally customized by our user. When he runs the results, we have a multi-criteria result analysis. In this analysis, we can see the performance of each criterion for each supplier, giving a very good comparison to negotiate with suppliers. We also have some charts comparing the suppliers in pairs. So we can confront them and see which criterion each one has to improve and which one is already in a good performance. And when running a multi-item bid, we also offer the user a portfolio result analysis, which gives the user a comparison of different combinations optimized to better allocate the suppliers per item. This is an Excel report I'm going to open it for you. So in this report, we can see different scenarios that are all optimized using some aspects and some constraints. So the user can find the better scenario to allocate his needs. And also he can see some detailed information in other sheets in this Excel report. So through our web platform, we can reach these 6 main benefits. That is to maximize value in your acquisitions, supporting negotiations based in objective and relevant criteria, reducing risks in the long-term goals, increasing productivity because we work with templates to facilitate the routine, fostering collaboration for these many stakeholders, and guaranteeing compliance through all supplier selection process. So I leave you here with my contacts. Please feel free to reach out if you want to know more, if you want to request a demo. It will be a pleasure to hear from you. Thank you.
Thanks to Joyce for such a great pitch. Our next pitcher is Steve Kim, currently based in Seoul, South Korea. He will present Value Link U, a startup willing to create the best value based on the shipping logistics platform service system, contributing to the growth of the industry and the development of society by creating a win-win ecosystem. Considering the time difference, of course, Steve kindly sent us a pre-recorded video as well. Welcome, Steve.
Hello, everybody. I'm Soo-han Kim, English name Steve from Korea, Korean startup company ValueLink. I'm so happy and honored to have this opportunity to introduce our company in this good event. Our company's business model and motto are very simple, but very variety. We are pursuing for all-in-one logistics platform for every different customer to be able to use. E-commerce boom is making global supply chain more dynamic and more modernized, but there are still many inconveniences and difficulties in our current global supply chain system. From first mile to last mile, there are many logistics vendors and transportation modes are involved. And so many customers still have to spend a lot of time, energy in finding right information and doing document jobs for multiple transportation mode and logistics vendors. Customer wants their logistics more convenient, cost-effective, transparent, and getting fast feedback. We, ValueLink U, have decided to make this complex process more simple and efficient with all-in-one logistics platform to cover up all supply chain from first mile to last mile. We are trying to input all transmode and package types into our system. Truck, rail, ocean, air, express package, LTL truck, fulfillment, warehouse, customs, and so on. Customers can handle their logistics work at one single window. Customers can check their real cargo movement in our platform. We are pilot testing our global cargo tracking system with some ocean carriers and truckers. We are making the system with satellite data and IoT data. This tracking data is real-time, more accurate, and covering up end-to-end delivery. We are also providing business insights and reports to customers. They can check business performance, on-time delivery ratio, inventory monitoring, estimated arrival time, through our website. We named our all-in-one logistic platform Easy On. We are launching our Easy On service with Korean customers now. We have made over 60,000 transactions so far. This is our business model and value extra service. We are creating revenue. We are preparing for finance, blockchain, ESG service for value-added business model also. Our company is just 3 years old, and we are launching a platform in Korea this year and go abroad from next year. I really wish to meet you next year in person. Thank you for watching this and contact me by email or phone if you have any questions. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks to Steve for that video. What a great pitch. Our next startup is Cartasense. With our pitcher, David Weissman, the co-founder and active chairman. Cartasense offers end-to-end monitoring and alerting capabilities, as well as services for cold chain, environmental, and agricultural applications. Cartasense's exclusive real-time environmental information with modern machine learning, AI tools, and big data derives unleashed value in the supply chain. Welcome, David.
Oh, okay. Thank you for giving us the chance to host us. We are in the business of connected logistics. The business of connected logistics is around $55 billion annually, and we are in a real-time monitoring of perishable and pharmaceuticals. While we are there, these are two areas in the business which need a close looking during the transportation of between, let's say, if it is a last mile of around, let's say, few hours until few weeks. And the business is called cold chain monitoring. There is around 10 billion packaging moving worldwide. The waste in the food industry is around $1 trillion annually, and the estimated waste in the pharma is around 5%. What we are bringing to the market, and we already sold our solutions in few millions annually. We'll develop a very unique mesh technology. I don't want to go deep into that, but the reason for using mesh technology is that our environment, including a lot of water, think about perishables as well as on the pharmaceutical. If you are moving, let's say, pallets of cherry tomato, it's around 97% of water, meaning a container of 26 pallets, including 25 tons of water. And if you want to monitor in real time what is the temperature in the center of the pallet, temperature and relative humidity as example, you have a real problem to penetrate from electromagnetic perspective. Also, if you are, let's say, trying to monitor what is the environment inside from a closed container is also an issue. When the goods are arriving to the warehouse and you are in a cooling room, also they are acting as a Faraday cage. We developed for a few years a communication system by the name of Mesh, which allowed us to send this information from this, I would say, unpleasant environment to the cloud. In the cloud, we have a lot of application, alerts, SMS in real time, but we are also very proud in our capability and ability to predict. We developed, again, for a few years, a system that knows to predict up to 2 days ahead of time that your customer will have a problem, let's say, in the coming 30 hours. At the beginning, it looked like a magic, but it's not. It's based on the history of the lane of your customer, current real-time information from our sensor, which are part of this shipment, and external data sources that we know how to parse from the electronic airway bill or electronic bill of lading that our customer is sending us. What is the result? The result is reducing waste, safer pharmaceutical distribution, and increased efficiency. Here are examples of few of the market segment that we are targeting. We have 2 public customers. One of them is Kuehne Nagel. That's one of their managers spoke before. And the second one is Kysel in the area of pharma packaging. They are public, but we have many others. Okay, so it takes some time for the slide to update. I'm now in the 3rd slide. Let's wait for a minute. I will show an example for our hardware. You can see this is roughly in a slide of a stamp. It costs around $50 in quantity. It's connected to our gateway that we'll discuss in a minute, and it gives you an ID location and I would say a rough temperature. This is our high runner today, sold already in millions, including relative humidity and temperature inside in our mesh technology. This is our gateway, which have 3 radio capabilities. One is cellular, second is BLE, and the third is our mesh in 433 megahertz. If you look into our solution, there is the sensors. There is 2 types of, There are 2 types of gateways. There is one type of disposable gateway and another type of disposable gateways. You see here our services from reports to prediction and analytics, and also professional services for pharma warehouses. We are very proud in our coming BLE sensor. You'll see the slide in a minute. It's a unique concept protected by patent, less than $50 in quantity, and you can, let's say, glue it to each of your boxes. In a pallet, you can have, let's say, 100 boxes, so you can glue it to 100 boxes. And the idea is, where am I in real time? Think about a last mile as an example. A guy is coming in the morning, picking 100 boxes for 100 or for 50 pharmacies. Now he's driving, stopping near a pharmacy. Each time that he's stopping and taking a box to the pharmacy, you have the location, the time, and automatically, and the ID of the box that is leaving. So the box must leave in the right time in the right location. And if not, you'll get alert, SMS, email, WhatsApp, whatever is needed. A little bit, and this is the final slide regarding our prediction capabilities. We are processing API of weather station. We are processing, let's say, if it's an air freight, a delivery, we are processing API from the air cargos. We have in real time our sensor, which is giving us internal and external, if needed, temperature and relative humidity. We have the history of the claim. We are crunching everything, and then each half an hour, we are telling our customers if we will have, let's say, temperature excursion, if, let's say, is moving now antibiotics, which will be in between +2 to +8 degrees. So I'm telling you, guy, you will have in high probability in 30 hours, temperature excursion of 9.5 degrees. That's what we are doing for living. We'll be more than happy to share more information with each of you personally. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Thank you so much. Now, last but not least, we'll be joining on stage the startup Waves. And Waves will be represented by CEO Armin Nisus. Armin believes that responsible managers will direct their business decisions toward more sustainability once they have greater transparency on the effects of their actions. Therefore, together with Matthias Brinkert, he founded Waves with the vision of making sustainability visible and enabling the circular economy by using the great possibilities of digitization and the power of cloud technology. Armin, please join me on stage for this great startup session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carla. It's late, but you're still here. Thank you so much for being here in the evening. I'm going to speak about sustainability. Our claim is scale up sustainability, and that what we developed is the first sustainability management platform. So we want to give the full transparency of carbon emissions at the beginning, but more. So when we talk about sustainability, we have a lot of more aspects like social aspects, environmental, and also economically. Our product roadmap is step by step towards the circular economy. So the basis is the cloud-based sustainability management platform. We are clearly focused on the B2B business. So we need to handle a lot of data in the platform, and on top of this platform, we are able to offer a lot of different modules, like the first module, which is already in use. We call it the CFT, carbon footprint for transports, but the other one is carbon footprint for the tendering process, and we are still developing on the CFC to calculate carbon footprints for companies and their sites. And there are a lot of other modules in the development, but that's the first step, talking about carbon emissions, because carbon has the biggest influence on climate change. There are further steps to talk about the whole environmental footprint, but also social footprint in the direction of circular economy. Let me explain you what does it mean when we talk about a sustainable supply chain. For example, if you have a look to this very complex product like a car, and some of the car producers already had 30,000 suppliers, so there are a lot of footprints need to be calculated in the production, in the sourcing, but also the different transports in between, transports on the road, air freight, ships, and so on. So that means that we need a platform to not just calculate all the footprints, but also collect them all together so that the producer is able to give reliable statements to their customers, to us as end consumer. And the ideal of circular economy means that we are going to use the product, but at the end of the use phase, we're going to bring it back in the very clear defined recycling processes. And how does it work? On the one hand, we have this data connection from our customers, and there are a lot of different IT landscapes that we see. So we need clear defined APIs, interfaces to our customers' IT systems, and then we calculate compliant according to the framework in the transport. Mainly it's the CLEC framework. And then our customers can use, on the one hand, our dashboards with defined diagrams and results, but also they can use exports in their own system, but also to give information to their customers. A lot of added values like be compliant, really to realize reductions of emissions to generate revenue. One of our customers has found new customers because he showed that he worked with us and that he's able to come up with reliable carbon footprints. At the end, companies need to learn now more than ever, like never before in our history, to manage sustainability. And that is our meaning of SMP, Sustainability Management Platform. So we address one of the biggest problems of our time, it's climate change. And we see that the industry, especially logistic industry, is one of the biggest player. So with Waves, you are one footprint further. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Armin, for that great presentation. Congratulations on your company. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much to all of you for your dynamic engagement during the startup session. This startup session ends our conference. On behalf of the organizers, I would like to address special thanks to all of the speakers who contributed to this year's edition. Thanks to you all who came to the convention center or attended the event remotely from your home or office. I was honored to present this afternoon. So once again, as your Master of Ceremonies, I would like to acknowledge the support of our main sponsor, the Luxembourg Ministry of the Economy, for this summit dedicated to logistics and supply chain trends. I hope this conference met your expectations, and I hope that we will all meet again soon. I wish you a very nice rest of the day. Please stay safe. Goodbye.